fam, welcome to the show. This week's episode is brought to you by Vision by Dreamers. On this week's episode, we have Tommy Orona, who just ran for Diamond Bar City Council. Tommy gave us insight about his political education and his experience in public service. We discussed topics ranging from Christian values amongst today's education system, politics, and allowing God to work through you versus you working without him. Check this out.
All right, I'll start in prayer.
Yeah, why don't you pray this time?
Dear God, thank you so much for this opportunity, Lord. And I pray for each one of us that we would be able to set aside things that are distractions or any anxieties that may show up. I ask, Lord, that you would forgive us for any shortcomings we have in our lives, and that you would use this conversation that we have, Lord, for people and for us with one another. And I thank you for this opportunity, and I thank you for Tommy coming today and for the things that you're doing in his life, the things you put in his heart and the efforts he's put in to stand up for what he believes in. And I ask you bless those efforts. And I thank you so much for this opportunity, and I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Redeem Podcast episode 20.
20. You're 20.
That's a 20. That's a good one, dude.
2020. 2020.
Wow.
We have with us Tommy Orona. Tommy, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man.
How was your day today, bro?
Let's see. My day, I got a haircut today, so
Real fresh. I was like, this guy is just clean,
Yeah.
bro. I was like, I felt like a
it
caveman
wasn't
right now.
100% for the podcast, but maybe
Okay.
a little bit.
A little
I had to
bit,
give you
yeah.
guys some love with the haircut.
It was partly for the quarantine that's going to go down right now.
Yeah, I was nervous about that. Yeah, better get it in before they shut us down again.
Oh, man.
No, I got a haircut. Got a. What else did I do today?
A new sweater.
No, it's actually not new. The shirt's new though.
Okay.
But yeah, no, the sweater I've had for.
I dig that style, by the way.
Thanks.
That's
It's a
dope sweater.
perfect, like, it's kind of chilly.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
you don't
oh,
really
yeah.
want to put on something that's going to get you hot instantly. I run warm, so this was perfect for me.
Oh, looks good, dude.
I honestly can't remember what I did today. Clearly not too productive of a day.
That's funny.
Yeah, kind of laying around. What did I do today? I don't know.
Tommy, you recently ran for city council of Diamond Bar. Why don't you talk a little bit about your background in that?
Sure, 1 second. Well, yeah. So, I mean, I grew up in Diamond Bar, right? So I've lived there since I was 10 years old, which is, excuse me, like 18 years now. So 28. I played sports there. I have 3 siblings, so 2 older brothers and then a younger sister.
And they all went to the same school?
We all went to Diamond Ranch High School, yeah,
Okay.
for high school. But I grew up in the Christian private school system. So in here in Walnut, Southlands Christian School.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they used to be Walnut. I think they moved to Roland Heights now or something. But the campus, it was off Brea Canyon Cutoff Road.
Mm-hmm.
That was our church and our school, actually. So that was like my second home there. I mean,
Spent a lot
literally.
of time
Oh,
there.
yeah. From kindergarten to 8th grade, I was there.
Mm.
To this day, I have some of my best friends are from that school that I went to there. So even before I lived in Diamond Bar, when we lived in West Covina, I went to that school. And then when we moved to Diamond Bar, again, all the way up until 8th grade. So what is that, like 13, 14 years old?
Mm-hmm.
I was at the private school. And then in high school is when I took that transition to public school.
Is that something you wanted to do?
I did at the time, yeah, because both my older brothers had already moved into the high school. Kind of wanted to go where they were going. Plus, wrestling was a big deal. You know, I'm a former wrestler, and being that the private school didn't have wrestling, and both my brothers were wrestling. I wanted to wrestle, and that was probably the main reason I wanted to go to that school. And so I did that. But so. Anyway, went to high school there. I've stayed local. I've lived, went to Mount Sac and then went to Cal Poly Pomona. And to answer your question, I can get deep with this or just on the surface.
Yeah.
I'll go
Yeah.
surface.
No,
We
let's
can
go
go
all the way.
surface and then deep first. But I knew right from high school that I wanted to get my college degree in political science.
Why?
I just had an interest. Okay, why? This is something that I've only told like a few people. It's gonna sound a little corny, but the 2000 election, which ironically is really mirroring this election right now that we're going through, where if you remember, I was 8 years old. I think this was 20 years ago, and there wasn't a winner for like 2 weeks. It went all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court had to rule. There was lawsuits, right? Al Gore conceded, then he took back his concession. It was a big mess with all that, and I don't know why, but I was just so intrigued as a kid. I didn't get all of it, of course, but I just knew that there's like a red and a blue side.
I remember that too.
Yeah.
Oh, how old are you again?
I was 8.
No, how old are you currently right now?
28.
28, okay,
Yeah.
because I'm 29, and I felt like you sharing that story, I was like, you know what, I remember that being in like 2nd, 3rd grade, like that kind of happening. I was like, dude, I remember some of my friends talking about it.
Yeah. No, it was, and I just remember on my own, I did like what you would expect, like a little school project. I think I got it from a magazine my parents had laying around. Now keep in mind, my parents weren't super political. They weren't people who like, they voted, but they weren't like, where you talk about politics at the dinner table. Now they are, but that wasn't them back then. Like growing up, not at all. But and I knew who they wanted. Like I knew they were gonna vote for George W. Bush. Like and I knew that's like the guy they were pulling for. But I didn't.
So you come from a conservative family.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but again, it wasn't something like that was like instilled in us. Like
Got you.
we're Republicans, or we it was more of like, oh yeah, like they're more Christian, so we're gonna vote for them.
Got you.
But anyway, I was seeing that I made like this magazine thing that I cut out like George Bush, and fun fact, that was the first year that they ever did the colors, the blue and the red.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
All right.
So a little fun fact there. So I was like, so Republicans being red, Democrats being blue, right?
That's interesting.
And I
didn't
did
even
this
know
like
that.
construction paper thing where I put George Bush and all like, again, I didn't write most of it. I was like cutting it out, and I like used like glue and glued it, and had him on one side, and it said things about him, governor of Texas and this and that, and then Al Gore, vice president, and just had like all the, and I don't know why I did that all on my own. I wish I still had it, but I remember it in my head like doing that and showing like my mom and stuff, and I just took an interest to it, like, oh, who's gonna be president, and I do believe God put something in me then, when I was 8 years old, just an interest or an intrigue towards politics, and that I definitely didn't fully realize then. I'm still realizing it now, but so anyway, end up going to Supreme Court, and George Bush's, to make things weirder, his brother was actually governor of Florida, which was the deciding state.
Wow.
So it was real, like if you think about it, and so it does like, now with this whole Trump, looking like they're calling Biden the winner, but he's not conceding, and he's saying that there was fraud in these different elections and these different states, and they're going to lawsuits. So it's kind of come full circle with what got me into politics, and now in this election where I actually ran myself. But anyway, yeah. So I kind of grew up with that interest. I knew from high school I wanted to just to study it. I actually thought I wanted to be a high school teacher and go teach like American government in high school. Once I saw what they get paid, I was like, never mind. Yeah. Changed my mind kind of on that one. But so I just went from there to let's see. I mean, I graduated 2016 from college. Took about a couple extra years goofing around at Mount Sac, but I got done at Cal Poly, got my bachelor's degree in political science, and I still wasn't positive which route I wanted to go. Most people go to the I'm going to go work for a congresswoman or a congressman or something like that, which is great. It actually does get you connected, and it can get you
shaking hands and meeting people.
Meeting people, sure. But often that's for if you want to be like a behind the scenes player. Like you're definitely a political operative. You're in the world of politics, and in some ways you could probably meet more people or make even more things happen. But I always knew I kind of wanted to be like a candidate at some point. And some of those people do end up running. But most, I would say, don't. They kind of tend to move up. They might become a campaign manager.
Got you.
And then move up to maybe they ran a congressional
So they become
campaign.
a part of the machine, but they don't necessarily become like a front runner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because for one, it's very few people who actually want to go do that or have.
I could see that.
Yeah, again, for a lot of reasons. But so anyway, that never really fully interested me. I was like, okay, that's cool, but I don't see myself like wanting to do that. So I wasn't doing anything though. I wasn't getting involved. I mean, I was working in
No, in the school system with poli-sci, that's like you're getting your bachelor's in it, did you see like there was a tendency to lean red or blue throughout that, or was
in the
it
school?
or was it like pretty like neutral with it?
Oh, like as far as the professor's point of view? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Have you seen the movie 300?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, you know the scene when there's like 3 or 4 Spartans back to back, and they're surrounded by like a million Persians.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what it's like being a conservative in college.
Dude.
Yeah, it's
Man, it's rough.
It's and I'm sure it's even worse now. But it's once you come out, you like come out as a Republican or a conservative, and the more, especially if you're a conservative Republican, like actually, because there's
Interesting.
Republicans who aren't.
Okay.
Like, but I'm for gay marriage. Like, okay, then they're not gonna like totally hate your guts. They're gonna just like look at you a little like, oh, okay, you know. But if you're like, no, I'm conservative. Like, I believe marriage is between a man and a woman. I believe, whatever. Like for Trump, forget it. Like you like Trump, then you're done.
Right.
Yeah. And so I was graduating the year Trump was running for. So I graduated in June 2016.
Wow.
When he was running for president. So there was a lot of hatred there.
I bet.
A lot of professors who maybe beforehand you didn't know their political leaning. Well, it came out, you know. Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, so you are very liberal, you know. It was. I had one buddy, and we're still good friends to this day. But he, he's conservative as well, but he's more. What's the word? A little more outspoken, I guess, on the way he doesn't watch the way he comes off. Like he doesn't care if he rubs people the wrong way.
So he removes some of his diplomacy and he just hits it hard with what he thinks
hits
or
it
how
hard,
he feels.
Yeah. And he's a very smart guy. I mean, he's smarter than me. Very, very intelligent guy. He went to law school after he just graduated like last year, but he would just like hit people with, and the more factual he was, the more upset they would get, you know. And then so he and I were kind of doing this like good cop, bad cop, like conservative thing, but we were just constantly getting like,
it's kind of funny.
yeah, called like bigot or the F word or
For sure.
Yeah, so it was, even we had other friends who were liberals, and they would just kind of like laugh or keep quiet, but I think we emboldened a couple like closet conservatives though.
For sure.
Yeah, because a couple people ended up finally, because I was in a ridiculous class like women and gender and politics or something, you know, like I say ridiculous because like it was a class about like a whole class on transgender and gender, and I mean it said women in politics is kind of misleading. It wasn't about like, oh, famous women in politics, like that's kind of cool. It wasn't that. It was like
A movement.
yeah, it was more about like, oh, if you want to be just talking about gender like preferences and stuff, and more of that route, you know. And so we just would like kind of clown in that class and like make fun of like and the professor we had a good relationship with, so he would try to like keep the class like civil, and then my buddy would say something and then tick him off, and then somebody else would say something, so it became this like very interesting fun class that we
A lot of banter, a lot of okay.
Yeah, a lot of banter.
Now
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, just because I'm listening to your story. Do you enjoy the ruffling of the feathers kind of conversations? Is that something that you like? Do you know what I'm asking you? Like, you know, some people I know, they are a little bit debative by nature. They're like, they had that kind of tendency. We were kids together or whatever.
Yeah.
And so then when they get into an opportunity to make that their life, they love it, right? And then it's just about how much information they learn to be able to back up where they stand. Now, do you enjoy that as well? Or is your approach to politics different than that? Like,
I don't know. I mean, I think that somebody else should answer that question about who knows me, but I think I'm definitely not like my friend that I mentioned.
Gotcha.
He's totally that way.
I can see a line in the sand that you're kind of drawing between you and him.
He's totally that way, and we need people like that. But
Absolutely.
but I think he enjoys it a little more, and whether it's a debate or it's just an interesting conversation, or it's kind of that in between, like we're not debating, we're not just talking, we're kind of disagreeing, but whatever it is, he likes all of that. I think he like loves that. I'm not like that. I don't run from it either, though. And it depends on the circumstance, right? You know, I just recently, I was campaigning out there. It's this like old Vietnam vet guy that was all, grumpy and big Democrat. And when he asked me what party I was, I'm running for a nonpartisan office, but I'm not gonna some people really press like, oh, but what are you? You know, I'm like, okay, I'm Republican. Oh, well, I wouldn't vote for you anyway. You know, oh, okay, well, have a good day, sir.
Yeah.
You know, and then but he wanted to keep talking to me, and okay, that's fine. And out of respect, you know, he's a veteran. He's in his, you know, I don't know, I've had to get 70s at least, you know, older guy, and you know, I want to be respectful, so I'm gonna treat that.
So you went soft on him.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and then he kept pushing though, and he wasn't exactly being the most respectful, not to me, but like to. He knows where I stand politically, and he's willing to like trash on it, right? And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to throw back a couple punches, but I
So
kept
you busted out your big guns.
No, not the big guns. No, just a little bit, just to like put a little shield up, you know. But I, like, well, kind of, I don't know about that. What about this? Kind of like I was treating it like that. But if it was someone like our age, yeah, I definitely would have been a different temperament, you know.
I remember the first time I felt like I was really getting attacked for my kind of like views on something that was sort of political. Well, it's in politics. And that was right at the 2008 election. Obama was running, or he just became president at the time. And I remember being in this class, and this guy just asked me, because I was there having a conversation. He asked me, he's like, hey, so are you for Prop, I think it was 8, about the gay marriage at the time.
Prop 8.
And I basically told him I was either yes or no towards marriage between husband or wife. Like I told him, I was like, no, I believe marriage is between a husband and wife.
I think that was one of the tricky ones. It was like, if you vote yes, you don't want
it's
it.
Against
yeah.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, go on. Yeah.
And he told me, and at that point, he was like, oh, so you're not secure with your sexuality then? And I was like, no, like I'm fine with my sexuality. And he's like, then why did you have a problem with homosexuals getting married? And then all of a sudden, like, I don't know what came over him, but he pushed me. He physically pushed me.
Oh, wow.
And I sat down into my chair, and then we both kind of looked at each other, and he just looked at me. He goes, I'm so sorry. And like, he realized, like, he just emotions overwhelmed him, and he like responded. And I was like, what the heck is going on, dude?
Yeah.
Like, I'm a kid in high school. Like, why are kids pushing me right now? You know? And that was the first time, and I think it's just gotten worse, dude.
Oh, it's definitely gotten worse. Yeah. I had a girl that I was acquaintances with in college, and then there was one girl was doing like a goodbye thing because she was moving. I think she was going to do grad school in England or something, and so a couple of my good buddies from college and we went and we were just kind of hanging out, and in the living room. She was lack of a better word, kind of like a loner. She was like sitting alone, and there was people near her, but she was kind of sitting just by herself. And I was like, oh, hey, you know, what's up? You know, how you doing? And so we're talking a little bit, and we got in like a really great conversation. And I don't remember the details, but I know it was about God. And I knew she was either atheist or agnostic or one of those. And I didn't like lead her to Christ, but it definitely like a seed was planted, and it was like good, you know. And she responded very positively. And I think I saw her a couple more times, like, and then before like graduation. And then I noticed that, you know, when you can kind of tell you like formed a little bond with somebody,
Sure.
you know? Yeah. And, but she's like hardcore left, like Bernie, you know, Sanders and all that. Right. And so, I remember when Trump won the election, I just posted like, hey, what a great night for like freedom and this and that. Right. You know, and not like insulting anyone or not even like rubbing it in anyone's face, just, you know, and, just a respectful post for the candidate I wanted to win. And she like messaged me and like cussed me out and was just like real like nasty. And I was, you know, I was always very polite to this. Well, I try to be to most people, but I like felt like there was something spiritual for her. So I was like trying to, you know, reach out and, and she just like responded like with all this like hate online. I was just like, okay, you know, like, well, have a nice day, you know, like you can't really do anything at that point. But I think certain people some on the right, but more on the left, definitely, they view politics as a religion to them. It's kind of a way of life. And if you notice now,
it's
if
personal.
you guys, we're all about the same age. So if you notice back 10, 15.
I'm a little older.
He's old.
About I'm being generous with the about, well, then you could have even more to say on this. But if you think about it, from when we were like young enough to remember, or even if you studied it at all before we were born, you can, you know, like it didn't permeate every aspect of life, politics that is, and which religion should, right? That's, you know, definitely as a Christian, and or you see even like a good Buddhist or a good you know, someone who practices Islam, like they're gonna let that affect every area of their lives, right? So I think Christians can kind of learn that from other religions. Like, man, they really take their religion seriously. Like they do, you know. Anyway, what I'm saying is for politics, I don't think it should be that way, and but it's becoming more and more like that, and I think we're seeing how it's a negative thing. But the people on the left, for them, when they take out God, right, you remove anything to do with God out of the picture, right, and you replace it with government, it's a religion. You're gonna get it's a religion to them, and so they're not gonna go out and say that, like, yeah, my religion is, you know,
because they have no reason to tie those thoughts together. But we can see psychologically that that's what they've replaced as a religion in their life, their belief system, their ideas of what humanity.
And absolutely, and the way that guy like shoves you, like the reason it's so, like, before it was like, oh, okay, left, right, like, higher taxes, lower taxes.
He's passionately invested.
You're a little more, you know, loose with your social preferences. You know, I'm more like, no, I'm gonna stick to what the Bible says or whatever. It wasn't like this huge like divide of, you know, we're just completely enemies or this, you know what I mean? And I think now it's like one of the reasons it's like so filled with hate. It's like you're going against like their whole reason for being, like their worldview, their life, and it's kind of like, you know, which is why I also advocate on the other side now, though. And you might disagree with me, but as Christians, I think we have to get involved. Like, I think we have to stand up and vote. Yeah, of course, pray. Of course, live a good Christian life and be that light and model to people. But we have this very rare privilege in this country to vote and to be politically active and to actually choose who our leaders are going to be. Like, that's a crazy concept, right? Yeah. So I don't think we should like hide that under a table and like, oh, you know, you know, or even, you know, well, yeah, that guy's totally for everything I believe, but he's kind of rude and I don't like his tweets. You know, it's like, okay, well, you know,
begin filtering somebody spiritually, as to whether or not you can get behind them politically, right? You're talking about, I've seen that where, you know, let's just break the wall down real quick. Like, people will talk about the character of like Donald Trump, right? The way he like carries arrogance or pride or whatever, and say, well, that's not fruit of Christianity, the humility that comes in a person. So then just write off everything that they're standing for in line with what he's standing for, because they're constantly being bombarded by a liberal perspective, which right now with cancel culture is to filter everybody through their political correctness with the way that they can socially make people feel accepted or whatever. So as soon as you get any person, even comedians are in danger right now.
Big danger.
Yeah, because if they say something that's offending the wrong people, I mean, you could offend the right people all day long, but if you offend the wrong people, like, you're going to get canceled.
Comedy it's supposed to be offensive.
No, that's what's funny.
As is the gospel, by the way. But but comedy, I mean, an offensive, like, not to where, I mean, sure, you could. I don't think there should be a limit on free speech, right? So if you're going to say something completely obscene and gross, you know, I mean, I think you have that freedom to do it.
For sure.
I'm probably not going to be your friend, but but you know, but you can say that.
Yeah.
As long as you're not, you know, breaking law, you're not making threats or things that are then illegal, you know. But for comedians, right, like, you're up there, that's an act, like, you're doing a stage, you know, whether you really believe it, you don't really believe it, it's completely fake, doesn't matter. You won't really ever know too, unless you know the person personally. But
it's like actors. Like, if somebody's going to play the role of Hitler, doesn't mean he's Hitler.
Yeah, but we're getting there, though. We're getting there. I've seen, I mean, I wish I can remember what it was, but where somebody, they were giving some actor crap for playing not Hitler, but like a Hitler-like character. You know?
They came after Shia LaBeouf recently because they thought he was playing a Mexican, but it turns out the character he's playing wasn't even a Mexican character.
Yeah.
But as soon as it was released, because he kind of looks like a cholo in the film, I didn't see the movie, but recently he got attacked for that reason, and it was like, dang, like we're getting in this weird place where, I mean, you literally can be like attacked.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
For something you didn't even think about.
Cultural appropriation stuff is out of control. Yeah, I mean, like you can't even. I don't know if you guys saw Tropic Thunder back in 2008.
Oh yeah, blackface, dude. Freaking, I love Robert Downey Jr.
That movie is
how he got a pass on that, I don't know.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It's just a different time.
Yeah.
So again, I'm also a movie buff. I worked at a movie theater for over 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love movies.
We like movies
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I didn't.
All of a sudden, this became a movie podcast.
Yeah, I love movies. So I watched way too many movies for free.
Me too. I was an actor before.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Nothing big, dude. I did play production and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, I did some like acting for churches, and I've done a couple extra stuff.
Oh, that's
but
cool.
yeah, that'd be one of my dream jobs if I could just like
yeah.
get placed. But I'm not gonna like
Interesting.
go
Yeah.
pursue it because that's a hard life.
Now, before we derail too far, there was something that came up a little while ago that I think is worth like digging into a little bit. So you mentioned a person that you had ministered to, and they kind of were receptive, and then all of a sudden, when they heard about your political views, you're talking about this young lady, and then how she just cussed you out, and so that brings up a sort of hot topic, not hot topic, but something that I think rolls around in the curiosity of a lot of Christians, right? Mm-hmm. Now, first, I just want to say kind of where I stand on some of this stuff and what God's been speaking to me about it lately. So forgive me for the rabbit trail I'm about to go on a little bit. So, so one of the things that I've witnessed happen is people can have all kinds of crazy ideas pre-Christ. Their ideas on what a relationship is. You have people that'll preach like you can't marry somebody until you've lived with them. That's how whatever things they've come up with. Like somebody's told them this is a good idea. Their grandma said it's the way it should be. Whatever it is, and they bring it in as like philosophy of life, right? They'll be like, oh dude, you can't, and they have all these ideas. And then, to try to convince them to change their views pre-Christ is a difficult challenge, not undoable, but it's difficult. Right. But you see when Christ comes into a person's life, then all of a sudden the standards that they believe are right and wrong begin to shift. And I've seen many people, my wife is one of them, who was formerly a super left, like even to the point of like socialism and a little bit of communism and reading books about that, to becoming born again, and then over the course of like the next couple of years, then beginning to see her worldview, filtering her worldview to other people, other things. Now, me, I was raised in a conservative home because my dad's a Marine, and you're talking multiple generations of United States Marines, right? So that's the way I was always raised. So I sort of have understood, like, okay, I'm preaching the gospel to people, let the gospel penetrate their heart and change them. But unfortunately, that you can't just purposefully try to cover stuff up and not talk about stuff, right? In the name of, I want to win people to Christ, right? And like you said, right now, also there's another conviction showing up, which is the desire not only to stand for what I believe in, but to be vocal about what's right. Right. Not just what I religiously believe, but what's right for our country, what's right for this land, for the people of this country, for, and so here's something that the Lord's been putting in my heart lately, dude. And that is, I'm not a pushy person. There were times in my life, because I'm a good communicator, or because I have the skill of communication or talking with people, that I got put into circles with other people, like your friend you mentioned earlier, who enjoys brushing, and I dig watching that, by the way. I agree with you 100% that they're a necessity. I think they are a necessity in the body of believers and in the United States of America, and in just like groups of people in general. You need these personality types. But it took years for me to realize that I was being put into positions with circles like that because of my communication skills, when I really never wanted to be a combative, like, I wanted to be able to give an answer for the faith that lies within, but I never wanted to be like that guy who shows up to like, oh, dude, let me stick my buddy on someone concerning our faith or our doctrines or whatever. However, the next thing was to sway too hard. Once I realized I didn't want to be an argumentative person just trying to ruffle feathers, the next chapter that the Lord had to minister to me was when I began to sway too far the other direction, which is I'm not going to argue with anybody. I just want to love them and
too pacifist.
Tell them that Jesus loves them, and that knowing that once they get to follow Jesus, their hearts will start to change about what they believe in. And then I found myself hiding truths, right? Like being in a group of people that all hate Republicans and them saying like, you know what I mean? And then just being like, yeah, I know what you mean. You know, like just for the sake of, I don't want to do that. Like what I was once forced in these circles to debate and argue people because I could do it, right? Not because it was my nature. And more recently, the Lord has had to show me like, hey, it all boils down to truth. Right. And so this is what makes this conversation for me important, having it with you, is because the world has a lot of people who are playing the game. You see this. I see intelligence in you. I'm listening to you talk. I'm considering this world you've been in and things you're surrounded with. There's not a limit of people who are willing to play the game for either side. In fact, there's some people that are so good at fencing, they'll for the heck of it choose the opposite side just to show how good they are at what they do, right? And so the world isn't short of people who can play the game, the political game but what the world is short of is people with deep-rooted integrity and heavy conviction for what's right. Yeah. In spite of their natural tendency to either ruffle feathers or to be passive and love people and just whatever their nature is off the table when it's coupled against their integrity and their deep-rooted conviction to say what's true and what's right. Yeah. And that's the thing that I pray for all the time.
Yeah, you talk about love and truth, and that is something for me right now that is constantly getting... Okay, so I teach at a church. Okay, we started a church.
He's a pastor.
Yeah, it's weird. Teach at a church. I know, it's weird for me to say that stuff. Yeah. And I come across people who are struggling, people who are serving in ministry, and I love these people. And I come across situations where I have to say, hey, man, like, I need you to, like, check yourself. And for me, there's that tendency to want to be nice. And then on the flip side, sometimes there's, like, I could get kind of crazy sometimes, I think, and just be, like, very cut and dry. And then I have to ask God to give me that discernment. And one of the phrases that I've been taught, which I love, is truth without love is brutality, and love without truth is hypocrisy. And I think that for all of the believers in our lives, as we are walking with our family members, coming down Thanksgiving, friends, people we come across, I think we have to have that stance. You know what? We just lost a camera right now, but at least that's going to plug it in right now. So I think, Tommy, what you're doing is just that, is you are someone who's standing up with truth, and thank God though that you have Jesus in your life to give you that love at the same time. I kind of want to, before we go too far, because I want to ask a lot about your political views.
Sure.
I want to ask, kind of getting back on with where you went from poli-sci bachelor's degree to running for the city of Diamond Bar. A little bit about that background.
Okay, yeah. So like I was saying earlier, I had a period. So I was working at the movie theater. I was there probably a couple years too long. I graduated college at this point, and I'm like, actually I had met my ex at the time. And she was my first girlfriend, and I was 24, so, and then she lived out of state, so we'd fly back and forth to see each other. And so while I wasn't didn't totally forget about what I wanted to do for a career or what I was, my goals are, because I talked about them a lot, but that was just the thing. I was just like kind of like talking, and then I got distracted with, a new relationship. And anyway, I mean, I ended up learning, like, the Lord taught me so much through that relationship. But so I can see why, but at the time, it's like it's always like what you should be doing at a certain time, and so maybe you could have had an easier route, or you could have gotten to where you want to be 4 years sooner, or, I was like, I wasn't really focused on what I felt like I'm called to do or anything like that. And so I finally started like just researching, like, I was in like Coffee Bean on my laptop, and I'm like, well, who are these people that become president, And I was looking, and I'm like, okay, well, Trump, multi-billionaire, like celebrity.
Yeah, he's not jumping through the same hoops.
No, exactly. So I'm like, okay, like the skip, like, unless I get $1 billion right now, like that's not really too relevant to me. Like, how can I got to do it the way Trump did it. And then I'm like, okay, well, Obama, I have my whole beliefs on how certain things happen with him, but he came out of nowhere, and I was like looking at him, and I'm like, well, how did he get started? As a young man? He was a community organizer, which I'm still trying to figure out what that is exactly. But in Chicago, he was just seriously, he was just that was a little joke. Yeah, he was just getting involved in his community, and he was known, right? And he started there, and then he went to be, again, for him, every jump was like really big though. Like, I think he went from that to, I think, to be a U.S. senator, which is like a massive. I mean, that's like the next step before president, which it was for him.
Like, I made a single, and then all of a sudden I'm on like the MTV Awards.
Yeah, and you got a Grammy, and you're like, oh shoot, yeah, it's like that, exactly. And so that's kind of his route. So I'm like, while it's not totally hard, like it's a good way, but I'm like, he just the luckiest guy on earth. He went from, he didn't even do half of one term of a senator. Like, he was literally a senator for like 2.5 years or something before he got president. Or maybe 3. Don't quote me. Barely half of a term. And because it's a 6-year term. So I'm like, yeah. And
we'll have Max fact check.
Yeah, fact check me. Yeah. I'm sure Mark Zuckerberg's doing that right now. But, so
what's up, Mark? We know you're listening.
We know you're listening.
That's great.
But so anyway, it's my long way to answer your question.
No,
but,
do it.
I was like, okay, that's kind of, I'm gonna shelve that one, and then I went to Bush, again, not too applicable. Daddy was, president.
He's
already.
in the bloodline.
Yeah. So and so I'm like, kind of, okay, scratch. Clinton, believe it or not, was like, okay, as far as I know, he didn't have like, he went to law school, was very active, like in his local, I think Arkansas is where he's from, and he, again, not everything's going to be exact, but a lot of them, most of them I would just start. So I kept going, and like, a lot of them just mainly got started. And I didn't look only at presidents too, though. That's where I really started getting more of, because it was the faith factor of like, okay, God, like, you can take me however high you want this to go.
For sure. But part of the way he does that is by putting these curiosities in your mind.
Yeah.
Right.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And but I realized with the presidents, I wasn't like going nowhere, but I'm like, okay, I need to broaden my research a little bit to, let me just look at my local congressman or assemblywoman or whatever, like, how are they doing it? And almost all of them start like locally, like wherever they lived, like, oh, you're from Walnut, okay, you get involved in Walnut, and so I was looking at my well, actually, Diamond Bar Walnut, we share the same, most of the same representatives, and I was looking, and I'm like, oh, they live right here. They lived right here in Diamond Bar, and they were like Diamond Bar City Council. And that's when I felt God give like a loving, kind of like slap in the back of the head to me, like, because I kind of stubbed my nose at like local politics because I was only focused on like federal politics, maybe even state level a little bit, but nothing like below that. Not that I didn't think it just didn't interest me, really. It wasn't like I thought it wasn't a big deal. I know it's important, but I was more like, okay, like federal, state, like what the governor and the president are doing.
To put this on like music terms, like you don't want to hear about mixtapes. Like you want to find out how you get into like the boardroom at Sony. And like how do we get signed and get the big...
Right, right. And so I think there's a level of humility that came in that when the Lord did that, but also more than that, because it honestly wasn't like just a pride thing. It was more of...
A goal thing.
Yeah, and so I was,
could see that.
but then when I felt that, honestly, like that's the best way to describe it. Like I felt like in a loving way, like a loving head tap,
Yeah.
like
Humble yourself. Start here.
Yeah, like and kind of like hello, like open your eyes, like it's right in front of you.
You want to dig a hole? Here's a shovel.
Yeah, like you live in Diamond Bar, you've lived here, forever. Why aren't you? You don't even know what's going on in your own city. Why don't you get
part
involved?
of this community?
Yeah, like this is where you grew up. You played sports. You so on and so forth. So I was like, yeah, like kind of like, oh, duh, and then looking at, like I said, looking at other successful people who are currently like state assemblymen, congressmen, and they did that. Like that's what they were, some from Diamond Bar, So I was like, oh, and so anyway, I just started going to the city council meetings, and I was, this was like maybe 3 years ago now. I was just showing up, and here's a guy in like his mid-20s, and you have everybody else is either a high school kid that's there for extra credit, or like retired. Yeah, like like retired. Like
about to be permanently retired.
Yeah. Or like a dude in a hard hat who's there for like one bid for that day. Hey, use Mikey's construction for this like park project, and they say their little piece. And then they don't even stay the whole meeting, and then they leave,
Right.
And then me. And so I stood out, and I had a mutual former coworker who knew one of the city councilmen, and basically that was the only connection I had. So like we hadn't met each other. I think she told him like, oh, like he wants to meet you or whatever, and so I was
like,
there.
Yeah, I'll give him an autograph.
And so I was just there, and he's a really cool guy. So we started talking, and I just formed kind of I met all of them, the 5 of them, but I formed, I mean, just, it's amicable, just like, hey, how you doing? It's made a couple jokes.
You made your face recognizable.
Yes,
and
yeah. But it wasn't like we were hanging out or anything, but just, and anyway, at the time there was the city clerk, she's retired now, was also named Tommy. I don't know if that's why she liked me a lot or what, but she was like awkward. You ever meet those people in life that like God just puts in your path, and they're just like super nice to you, like almost to where you're like, what's going on here?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Like you have no reason to be that nice to me, and like overly helpful. And so I went, I don't know, we were just talking because she had as a city clerk, she had to be at all the city council meetings. So she would see me again every other week there. And so people ask questions like, oh, so why are you here? Or what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, just, interested and trying to see what's going on in the city, and, might want to get involved, in some way. And she's like, do you want to run for city council one day? Ooh. And I was like, of course I did, but I was like, maybe later. Yeah. At some point.
Now, real quick, please hold your train of thought, but what do you think that is? Like, it happens a lot with people that feel like they have a calling to be a pastor. It happens a lot when people feel like, is it when somebody brings it up, that thing that you actually had in your mind?
Yeah.
And there's like this hesitancy, like to admit it almost. Is that what, are we kind of on track?
Yeah.
What do you think that is?
What the hesitancy?
Yeah, like what makes us do that,
Fear maybe? Fear or doubt. Surprise,
embarrassment,
too.
Kind of a little bit, like, you really think you're gonna,
like, who are you, like, to like, you're a young kid,
kind of like how you're gonna be a president one day.
Hey.
You like how I did that, bro?
I do like how you did that.
Market. Redeem podcast. Prophesied of this.
Mark the time and place you said that.
Anyways, though, back to where we're at. So doors are kind of oddly flying open, which is actually boosting not your confidence in what you can do, but in what God might be willing to do.
Sure, but at this point, nothing's happened, right? So it was just, I was going to these meetings. I met, I was just talking to one of the council members. Again, most of just formalities, but we get along, and he's also more conservative, so we were kind of vibing on that as well. But again, we honestly would talk maybe 5 minutes at the most every other week. Some weeks he would like leave right away, or I had to leave right away. So not even that, but on average, maybe a few minutes after every meeting, and maybe for about 6 months.
Yeah, that's really cool though, how you just show up though. Because I think if anyone's like looking to get involved with something, it's like, dude, just show up.
They're like, no, you got to be someone's nephew. Like, no, actually, you can show up. Like.
And I think this is just a biblical principle. What I'm getting at right now is whether you're a Christian or not, because God rewards those who because sometimes non-Christians do
his ways apply whether you're his
right,
or not.
yeah.
Right.
And I think that well, a lot of times, I mean, a good solid like a Christian who's just like totally like not perfect, but you know what I mean, like a role model, like yeah, they might be checking all the boxes, but as far as like they're doing everything right, they're not perfect, but they're doing everything right, you know. But then there's the ones who are like, oh man, they're awesome, but they need whatever, like a ton of discipline in their life or this and that. But there's non-Christians though who like, yeah, I mean, they're not Christian at all, but man, like for example, like hard work, you know, like they get up every morning and they provide for their family. Yeah, they're the hardest worker at work. Like they're not Christian, but they're just like God's gonna reward them for that, you know, in that
integrity that pays off. It does, right?
So in this case, I think for me it was obedience because and a leap of faith. You know, again, I wasn't doing anything big, but often it isn't something big that God, like sometimes it's just small steps, right? Because I did feel silly sometimes sitting there, like, you know, being the fact that I stood out, being young and there, and I had no reason to be there, and I'm just. I
can relate to what you're saying, dude.
Yeah.
There were moments, and I want to let you continue. I'm just bantering back and forth with you, not bantering, but just conversating with you. But there were moments like in when God put it in my heart that I was going to be a pastor, right? And that still makes me feel a little funny because I don't feel like I carry myself that way, but.
No, not at all.
Yeah. So, but like when I would be in certain circles and the Lord would put in my heart to speak up, and I would be like at a place where, you have like clergymen who are in suits and I would just be obedient, which started to later on change other things about me too. But, I remember there were moments I was just like, you look ridiculous right now, dude. Like everybody, they must be internally eye rolling, just like, and back to what we were talking about, you know what I mean? And, but there's something interesting about your story, bro. Like, because when it comes to conservative views, bro, like you are a needle in a haystack that a young man would even dare to like step in the world that is in complete opposition to what you probably should be as far as what people think, and here all these people that must feel like they're being pushed, they're getting, just by their age alone, they're being pushed off the edge of the conveyor belt, right? With conservative ideas and views. Like, I bet you there's people that are conservatives every day. They're just like, you know what, honey? It's over.
Yeah.
There's not a young person in sight.
Yeah.
Like we're just, and then you show up, and I'm wondering,
yeah, I could touch on that in a second. Actually, I noticed that a lot through the campaign, and before, but the campaign kind of it was, it felt really good. Just when I'm in a lot of political circles a lot. I throw myself in certain environments, and because you're right, it's mostly more so with conservatism. It's more so an older crowd. Definitely here in California too, right? So we got to remember that too. We are in Southern California, but I do believe it's taking root across the country in a bad way. But definitely here where it's like so dominant left that when you see someone who is not only conservative but young and non-white and
not just like some nerd kid with a pocket protector,
right? That too, and race,
Hispanic.
I don't really, I don't exactly.
What are you? I didn't even.
I'm
ask.
half Hispanic, and half Armenian,
Okay.
So when you see
double
that
whammy,
double
though,
whammy, yeah. So double whammy, and they see that you're like, okay, you have here's this young brown kid who's conservative. It's like, some like maybe look at me weird, but a lot of them it kind of gives like hope to, I think.
Sure, I imagine, yeah.
Some straight out say it, like, oh, well, like
they'll back you.
Yeah, you got to be like, young people like you need to get involved. People like you, and
I
can see it in their eyes.
Yeah.
And it brings like a sense of hope, and I think a reinvigorating of their own views, like you were saying, is that where maybe they were. There's some who will like never give up, right? Like they're gonna die that like fighting, like no, like Trump, But then there's the other ones who are like kind of broken about it, like man, like did we just fake the funk? Like we're
especially like you said in California in this environment, and then this just the times we're in, and where news is sourced from just word of mouth commonly now, right? So people believe whatever the friends are telling them over Facebook as
Yeah.
to be truth, right?
Right.
To be their convictions now. So yeah, I could see why a lot of people, like my dad, a Vietnam veteran, who just like, the world's going to hell in a handbasket, son. I'm telling you, it's over, you know. Or, but yeah, that, you know, just to be honest with you, it does invoke like a desire to pray for you, dude.
Thanks.
Because it's like, it reminds me of biblical stories where like an unlikely person standing in the gap, David and Goliath, you know, or things like that, where it's just like, you know, or you think of who was it that was out in the field killing bears, but his brothers just thought he was just a nothing, you know, nobody, and he's like, hey, like I've God's been training me all this time. You didn't even know. You thought I was just out here doing nothing, you
Right.
know? Yeah. And so I see that, and I see that the Lord is about that business, like he's about like raising up people that are an unlikely, you know, not a common thing that you see everywhere.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And so that's, yeah, dude, that's, I'm sorry, I'm
No, that's fine.
in parentheses speaking, but because coming into this conversation, bro, I didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
I'd be honest, I thought you were gonna be older, dude.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna
Oh,
be
you
an
didn't
old
tell
dude.
him?
I didn't know. I had no idea.
okay.
I mean, we had a conversation about who you are, what you stand for, and that kind of thing. I had no idea, dude, who I was gonna be talking to today. That's cool.
cool,
Man.
yeah.
And continuing on with your story,
continue
bro.
with where were we at with your story?
Sorry, bro. I'll do that, bro. I'll do that.
I did pin mark it though in my head. I'm not good at that,
Oh,
but since you
good.
told me to, I did. Yeah, I was talking to the Tommy lady, the city clerk, and she was so yeah, she just opened with that. Do you want to run for city council? And I was like, yeah, maybe down the line, you know. And she's like, okay, well, just so you know, she's like, and she's all, keep in mind, like she's saying it, I'm actually downplaying it. She was like very passionate as she's saying it, which was more trippy about it, you know?
Inspiring a little bit or intimidating?
No.
Impactful.
Yeah, impactful, I think. Yeah, just kind of like, dang, okay, you know? And but she was like, well, you know, all the city council members were commissioners first. I'm like, okay, what's a commissioner? And then she, you know,
Commissioner Gordon?
Yeah, like, that sounds cool. I love Batman. You know? Is there like a bat signal on top of Diamond Bar City Hall, or you know? And she actually, I didn't even ask that at the time. That was in my head. I was like, you know, but she's like, I'm like, okay, well, the question I did ask was like, okay, how do you become a commissioner? She's like, well, you gotta. She's like, actually, it's real simple. You just got to take one of these forms, fill it out, you know, and turn it into City Hall before the deadline. And this was like January, I think, mid-January of 2018. And I was like, okay, cool. So, you know, yeah, she said all city council members were a commissioner first, you know, and I looked up just the 5 that were, you know, so like, oh, like it's true, you know, like they were commissioners first. And so we had like 3 main commissions: Parks and Rec, Traffic, and then a Planning Commission. And so you can apply to all 3, but you can only get, you know, one of the gigs. And anyway, fast forward, like she said, I had like a month, right? So fast forward, like I don't know,
Days till a month.
Yeah, a couple weeks or something. No, I get a call, and so anyway, it's a Tuesday night city council meeting. I think the next one maybe 2 weeks later, and I go to I had a workout or something right after. So like I either left right away or a little early, the city council meeting. I remember I left and I changed and worked out. And while I was working out, I got a missed call. So I checked my phone after. I'm like, okay, I don't know this number. Like, yeah, listen to it. And it's one of the city councilmen. And he's like, hey, Tommy. And, you know, like, sorry, I wanted to catch you after the meeting, you know, but you left it. You look like you left in a hurry. Go ahead and if you can give me a call, you know, I wanted to talk to you about something. And I was like, it was kind of like vague like that. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, that's random. Like, how did he even get my number? I didn't even know. We hadn't. See, that's the point, that we hadn't even exchanged numbers.
Dang.
So I call him back, but at this point it's like kind of late at night, like 10:30 or something. So he didn't pick up. I'm like, okay. So anyway, he calls me the next morning about like kind of early, maybe 7:30 or something like that. And when I saw it was him, like I picked up, you know, jumped out of bed. I was like, hey, you know, what's going on? And he's like, hey, Tommy, Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to talk with you last night. My Parks and Rec commissioner, he's not good. He's retiring or whatever word he used. Like he's stepping down. He won't be doing it anymore after this term. And so I was thinking to myself, like who would be somebody, to kind of take his place. And then I'm thinking, okay, so it's someone, my age or older. And, he's like in his 60s and the other guy was even older than him. And he was, and he's like, oh, and I'm thinking like, no, maybe I should go someone younger. And then he's like, you came in my mind. And I was like, Tommy would be perfect for this. And he goes, I don't know if there's something you'd be interested in or not, but, but if you are, let me know, would you want to do something like that? And he's like asking me almost like, hey, you want to do me like a favor, like fill this part.
Like, hey, you want this job? It'll really help me out.
Yeah, like it'll help me out. He didn't say it'll help me out, but that was kind of the tone. Like, hey, like if you want, like I think you'll be good at it. And keep in mind, I'd only discussed the commissioner business with the clerk. Yeah. That's it. Like I didn't mention one thing to him. He didn't, and obviously by the way he was phrasing it, he didn't have a clue either.
Were you praying about it?
I was, but not fervently. Like, not gonna lie.
Right,
like,
because it just seemed like something that, why not?
I had a couple. I pray like Lord, a couple. But it was like when you pray a couple times, like maybe while you're driving a little bit, or just like, hey Lord, I'm going to these city council meetings, but not like I wasn't like
it
on
just falls in your lap, basically.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And I was kind of like, so anyway, he didn't know. So little did he know that I had the form already. I was like planning on applying. But I was going to apply, like, cross my fingers, like, all right, Lord, like, let this be found well, like holy water on it, and he, then all of a sudden I get the city councilman calling me, asking me if I want to do it.
Yeah, that's
like,
crazy.
Wow. Yeah, and I'm like, yeah. To make things a little crazier, he goes, only thing is today's the last day to apply. Like, you got to get it in today. I thought, when she was explaining to me, I don't know why, I thought I had like all month to do it.
Right.
So I was like, my plans for that day were to do nothing, just like relax. And it was like my day off. I was just going to like chill that day. And so I'm like, oh shoot. So I filled it out, ran it over. He's like, yeah, if you don't turn it in before 5 today, like even I can't help you at that point, Yeah.
So you driving in low gear,
speeding
to like
fill it out as I'm driving. No. So I filled it out. I turned it in, made sure like it got stamped before. I made it hours before, but
I got you.
Yeah, and anyway, I just want to make sure like they got it, like it's in, and then 2 weeks later they vote, and if you're putting up, let's say we're all councilmen, right? You're gonna have your 3 choices for commissioner for each commission, 3 and so on, right? Unless I know like the person you're picking is like a scumbag, I'm not gonna like vote no on them. There'd be no reason for that,
right.
And then especially when you could do it like back to me, like, well, no on yours, So it's pretty commonplace that you approve the people they're
the
nominating.
recommendation or whatever. Yeah.
So anyway, like each councilman puts up, or a woman puts up three people, and so I'm sitting there at the council meeting, and he, and I got nervous because I wasn't like, I was just really nervous. I don't know why. I was just really nervous. And he's like, okay, my planning commissioner is, so-and-so. And I'm like, oh, like that's not my name, And then then he says, and my traffic commissioner is, I nominate, Jim Jones, whatever. And I'm like, and then my Parks and Rec commissioner, I nominate Tommy Orona. And I was like, oh shoot, yeah, that's me. No, but I was like, dang, like this is getting real. And then they vote, and it was so casual, like for them it's like normal business,
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, so let's take a roll call, which is another term for voting, like and they're all like, yes. All right, congratulations to the new commissioners. Of course, I'm the only one that's present there, Like the other commissioners aren't even bothering. They're not even bothering to be there, And I'm like, and because I was just going to the meet. That for me it was normal. I was just going to the meetings anyway, right? Every 2 weeks I was there.
like a quiet room. You're like, yes,
yes, yeah.
Oh my gosh, this kind of sounds like a movie. Like the whole story.
Yeah.
But I remember this day in particular because I was in like a leather jacket. And I was like chewing gum. I don't know. I had this like 50s greaser thing going on that day, but I was kind of like, and I was so not prepared to like address the council, And I would have dressed a little more conservative or a little more, maybe a button up or something. And his name is Steve Ty. He called me out. And he's like, yeah, I have actually, one of the new commissioners is here right now. Tommy Orona, you want to come down and say a few words? And I'm like, what? Like, because and I'm in the back too.
Wow.
And
The
I'm
long
like,
walk.
yeah. And it's, when you put like a fresh piece of gum, so it's like you can't even kind of like, it still needs to be chewed.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I
It's
was
still
like,
folding
it's
at
still
this
folding.
point.
Yeah. I'm like, oh shoot. So I'm like walking down and I go there and, I just like, again, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but you're looking up and they're on their like podium. It's like all fancy, and I'm like looking up like, oh man. And so I did okay, but I remember being pretty nervous. I was like, thank you for the opportunity, blah blah blah. But I think I did call him out for calling me out. I was like, thanks for this wasn't planned. Kind of like threw something back.
So your sense of humor won you over a little bit in that spot.
And that's actually something we were initially getting along with, because we had in some ways a similar sense of humor with the councilman who nominated me. But I was anyway. So and then 2 weeks after that, I was getting sworn in at the Parks and Rec Commission.
Parks and Rec,
yeah,
great show.
Yeah, so funny fact, I had never seen the show before that.
Really?
Never, not once.
Have you seen it since?
Since I got to like season 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like, what do commissioners do?
Yeah. I was like, people were telling me about the show, and they're like, and I know it's like a spin-off of The Office, or the same.
It's just like same style,
same production company or something. Yeah, style of, and so I actually didn't like it at first when I started watching it. I'm like, it's like wannabe Office. But then I got to like season 2. Everyone told me like, wait till you get season 2. So I did, and it did get better. They were like, oh, do you do this, do this? I'm like, I'm sure it's nothing like what the show is like.
Right.
And when I saw a couple of episodes, there is an episode where there's like a commission, and I was like, okay, it's actually not too far from like it was weird. Like it's, of course, it's a comedy show, and it's ridiculous, but there's elements of it that are very similar, and I was like, oh, it's kind of scary how close it kind of is, but no, I mean, I went to, but when I was getting sworn in, I mean, we're doing the same oath of office that, any official takes, In fact, we got to do both, because we got to do the federal and then the state of California's as well.
Do they still like do hand over the Bible type?
Not
deal?
over the Bible, but just raise your right hand, and then swear this oath, and so you take it, and I mean.
They still do that in the union, even. They make you swear.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I'm like, oh, shoot. Like,
oh, that's
just
full on political.
Parks and Rec commissioner for Diamond Bar, right? Yeah, but no, but...
yeah, but it's a branch of the government all the way down.
Yeah, and I mean, and I was like, this is a... So it's not a job, just so you guys know that. It's like mostly volunteer. You get, I think, $45 a meeting that you attend. And it's, at the time, was monthly meetings. When I was chairman last year, I kind of... was talking with the parks director, and then the other commissioners, and we kind of agreed that it would be better to go to like every other month, because to make the meetings more productive. Because sometimes we'd meet for like half an hour, have everyone set, like how we're all set up here, they set up the mics, they get your nameplates, they get you get a gavel if you're chairman, so that was pretty cool last year. But
Judge Tommy.
Yeah, I was that's fine. And I was we're doing that, and you talk about, okay, we fixed this park, we did updates on, again, it's important work, but they would take like 10 minutes. We fixed this light, we replaced the paint on the trash cans at Sycamore Park, we did this, that, and then, okay, like any other news? Like, no, that's it, no new news. And it's like, all right, everyone, see you. And
do you think there's a little disconnect there, maybe with the traditional way things are ran, and then the way society's kind of ran? Like, there was a time when people went to their local, like the community showed up to go to the local things, right? And now everybody, like, I mean, and shame on us, really. Like, people are so disconnected.
Oh, it's totally open. Yeah, you
can go.
You don't even have to be a resident, But I mean, it's meant for residents, but anyone can go. Yeah.
Right, but people don't really go that often. No, anymore, right?
We have well, what I was saying real quick was that we made it every other week, so that way it was more, because there was meetings that were and it's not just about time, but it's like we actually have things to discuss, and like we would more efficient meetings and impactful meetings, but when we moved it to every other month, I was glad that we kind of went that direction. I brought that up, and I think we had like a 3-1 vote. One guy was absent, and we had so we passed it, and then we goes to the city council, and I think, I don't want to take too much credit for this, but I think they ended up not only approving that one, which they did, but I think it went across the board to the other
Oh, wow.
They
commissions
applied
too.
that.
Yeah.
At least to the traffic one, yeah, because
Mm.
planning they meet more often. But yeah, so
So you're making, moves already a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, very minor.
I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to
yeah,
upplay it,
yeah.
but what? Because what I'm looking at this through is what God's teaching you, not what the world is
I see
calling
what
by
you're saying.
numbers
Yeah.
impactful.
In a spiritual
right?
sense, yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
You show up a place, you see what's going on, you see what would work more efficiently, and you go for that.
Yeah. And I'm trying to be, because there's times when the thing is, everybody's so nice they kind of have to be when they're the staff to the commissioners, because while we don't have any legal authority in the sense to or even we can't appropriate funds and things like that. It's all city council. We're an advisory committee. We give advice and we can request things of the staff. Now, keep in mind, let's say you're the parks director and then there's a superintendent of maintenance and of and recreation. They're getting paid really good money. This is their careers. That's their, their Monday through Friday job. They're making, I'm getting $45 a meeting. Now, I'm just a resident who signed up to do the commission thing. But because of the way the government is structured, I'm not their boss by any means, but as a commissioner, you have this, you can request things and you have to get answers. You know what I mean? And
I see that.
Hey, let me see if you're like, hey, we did this, because you guys are the ones doing the work, you're planning, you're doing everything really. But it's like, I don't know. For example, we redid all the lights in all the parks, and that cost $1 million. And what if I was, I could be like, well, what if we put LED lights? Wouldn't that save energy and save the city, $500,000 every year going forward? Whatever, for example, right? And you can, well, you know what? Let me. I'm going to put have a report put together, and we'll brief you next meeting on that. And then you'll come back. You know what? Actually, it is. It would cost this much, or we thought about it, but the reason we didn't go is because it actually long run would cost more money. And then something like, oh, okay, great.
So
good to know.
you have the power to push a button that makes these people that have jobs do these things.
Yes,
is what you're saying.
yeah.
And there's something interesting, just because some people are listening and they don't know anything about anything political or whatever. There's something interesting to add in that because we're a government of the people, right? Our structure has been set up in such a way that it's intended to give power to the people, right?
Yeah,
so instead of just a person that's working somewhere to have a paycheck and get a job, you have a person who's willfully coming somewhere to be a part of the community, and it's set up with intention to give some weight to that person.
Absolutely.
Right?
And it's a beautiful thing because now I'm not elected, so I think it's very important that, and which it is my power, and anyone who's an appointed official should be, way more limited than somebody who is elected, just because they are that representative. The people are directly choosing that person, But
you're a member of the community.
I'm a member. Yeah. Not only am I a member of the community, but I am somebody who was elected nominated me to be an arm of theirs, so to speak. So
you were chosen.
The president, for example, in this case, President Trump, right? He has a cabinet of high-ranking officials, right? Secretary of State, Attorneys General, and so on. Secretary of Defense. I mean, massively important roles. While they're not elected, they are appointed directly by the president who is elected.
Right.
So they have a lot of power, but they have this. You know what I mean? You get what I'm getting at?
Which is why
there's somebody who, they're representing the elected official in a sense. Yeah.
Which is why people should consider these things when they're voting for a president, that not only do you like this person and the way they talk or the way they smile, but do you believe that this person has the capability of choosing a group of people to surround around themselves to can we kill that freaking... No, I'm just joking, dude. I'm just messing. Is that my phone? Can you silence my phone? It's over there plugged in. Yeah, let's fire that guy.
Somebody's losing a job.
Yeah. So anyways, that's also part of and I'm not trying to derail too hard, but a big part of why people will vote for somebody who they feel is competent for a job, they attribute that choice that they're choosing to a person that they see as a competent person that can get things done, right?
Right.
And even though some people may have called Donald Trump a what are people saying? Like let's try this out, you know, like a experiment or something. Even at those who did choose like with an experiment, one of the weighing in factors was that this is a person who runs business and who has surrounded himself with big decisions for a very long time now.
Oh yeah.
You know, so, and I'm only bringing that up because you're mentioning how important it is that an elected official has people that they're picking around them.
Yeah, and the higher up you go, the more
bigger the more weight that is.
Yeah, so
right.
I mean, I'm talking this is just about as local as it gets.
And I understand
Diamond Bar
that,
City
yeah.
Council,
Right?
I mean, even more than LA City Council, right? Because that's massive, right? I mean, there's millions of people in LA.
So the bigger the role, the bigger the shoes, the more weight it holds.
But somewhere like a city like Diamond Bar, Walnut's even smaller, but something like that where you have just a 5-member council and there's even more of a direct connection to. Okay, it's even at what I'm saying is like that's about, I'm not diminishing the role, but that's about as first step as you can get as far as running for an office. I mean, there's school board and other things, but if you want to go like the city council route.
Okay.
And then but even they have they work, it's not a full-time job, you know. Again, in LA it is. That's when you're representing thousands and thousands of people.
It's something that's deemed to be like, hey, it's a full-time job.
That's your full-time job, yeah, and that's just one district. But
or you definitely wouldn't skip every other week to do that one.
No,
Right,
exactly,
right,
yeah,
I got
that's
you.
their
I
full-time
understand.
job. Like you can't have another job. Or if you're in state assembly, like that's your full-time job.
So
everyone works or.
So when you're in this role now as commissioner, how do you feel, dude? Like,
yeah, I'm kind of curious
now
about
that
too.
you're like, you made it basically in your head to like, wow, like it's happening now.
Yeah.
You're making moves now. How do you feel with all of it?
Well, I felt like such a sense of, okay, Lord, like you are bringing me into what you have for me, you know? So it was humbling. It was, it felt good. I don't know what the word would be. I mean, not gonna lie, like it was kind of cool, you know, like, hey, oh man, I'm a commissioner. Like I got a fancy name tag and, you know, I get to speak behind the podium, you know, instead of, you know, on the other side.
Now, do you enjoy that? Like, I'm just curious, like, as a young man or whatever, do you gravitate towards, or should I ask the opposite question? Have you ever been a person that shied away from, or you were always capable to stand in front of people?
No, I'm always capable of that. Yeah, that was something that has been in me. I love, like I said, I wanted to be an actor or I love entertaining people or just speaking. I would love to do like stand-up comedy if I could be funny. I would something that was interesting to me, you know. Again, I haven't. These are just things in my head that I've maybe dabbled with my friends, you know, but I've never like got into them too seriously. But no, my point is though, I've always had the ability to kind of step into not just the limelight, but in front of people. And
yeah, like I said, to word it differently, the Lord made you in such a way where it diminished that thing that's crippling to a lot of people to be in front of people. It's not that you're just chasing it, but that you don't have the handicap that a lot of people do naturally. I'm not calling them handicapped, but naturally they can.
Well, no, it's like the number one fear apparently, like over death is like public speaking. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, I'd rather.
Really, you're like, I'll cartwheel in front of it. Here I come.
Yeah. No, of course I get nervous or I get
for sure. You feel all the adrenaline.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I think for me, I'm able to channel it into most of the time. I'm able to channel it into a positive energy. I like to call it like not in some weird like spiritual,
I got you.
like, positive energy,
you.
man.
Yeah.
You know, but in a like okay, get these good nerves coming in and channel that adrenaline is a better word into and it can even help me in whatever I'm doing.
For sure, I see that with like a guy like Ben Shapiro's mind's working ultra fast because of the adrenaline.
Right? Yeah. He's always like that. Yeah, even on his podcast, like slow down. But so for me, it's something. I mean, when I worked at the theater and I'd go address a packed theater of 400 people there to watch Spider-Man, like they don't want to see a guy in a cheap suit go up and tell them like to put their cell phones away, right? But you got to think of like a creative, like fun way to do that, and if you come out scared or nervous, they eat you up. Oh my gosh, you got
like what's that? He started the sentence quietly.
Especially on the crowd, right? If it's like a Fast and Furious movie, like that crowd will eat you alive, you know.
Sure.
So or I don't know why, but before this new Spider-Man kid, the one before that one, what's his name?
What's the kid's name? Max.
He's actually like 39.
Andrew
Garfield. Yeah, thanks. So his second film, the last one he did.
Sure.
I don't know why, but that night was like exceptionally rowdy crowd. Go figure, but it was. And so
Spider-Man fans going hard.
Yeah. They go, and so like I had to go, and I remember they even had like a beach ball, and I'm like, and the last thing you want to do is want to be like the corny manager who's like trying to grab it from them, and like falling over and like laughing at you and stuff. So, but I just like kind of penetrated that through like, hey, you guys ready for Spider-Man? Like, yeah. And then I was like that. And then you even kind of, it's like a weird mirroring effect I try to do.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to channel their energy and that confidence they have to be like the heckler and throw it back at them, so to speak. So I'm going to be,
little psychological
judo. Yeah. And I come at them like, oh, that was weak. Like you guys ready? And then they're more like, no, they're on the fence. Like, yeah, we're ready. You know. And then once you get them going, then you make them laugh once, then they'll.
Yeah, let me see that beach ball.
Yeah. Now put your phones away.
Smack
somebody. Don't ruin the movie. Yeah.
That's funny.
And they listen to you more, and they're receptive, and then they're like, oh, and even if whatever angle, like I'm trying to hit different people. Like, oh, this guy's cool. Okay, cool. I'll listen to him. He means business. I'll listen to him. Oh, he's he's not so uptight. Like I'll listen to him. Like it hits a lot of those crowds all in one. Wherever. Like for you, it might be like, oh, this guy's kind of cool. I like, okay, I'll hear him out. You might be like, oh, he's serious. Like let's calm down. Whatever each person.
So you think that your ability to kind of read people has really played to part of your calling?
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd be lying if I'd be doing that. Like,
no, I like that. One of the things that I always, whenever I'm thinking of people and their callings, I love to couple together what God made them naturally with what the Spirit gave them. And as soon as you can really help somebody understand what their spiritual gift is and couple it together with them understanding what God made them. See, because when he gives you the talent up front, that's a gift. You could run with it. You can go make $1 million off it. And you could have. You could have chosen this gift of gab to go and make money, to get the prettiest person, and get the whatever it is that you
I think I got that.
Yeah. Well played. So God gives us that stuff, right? But then if you can couple that together with the calling, the gift of the Spirit, now you have, I should say, when you couple it together with the gift of the Spirit, now you have the real calling.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the reason why I'm just kind of picking your mind. Like I'm picking up on what God made, right?
Yeah.
What God made here, like your perception, your ability to listen, reflect. That's a big one. Like if you can vibe a room and reflect them, that's huge.
Yeah.
Those are talents, though, right? You're aware that there are people that can do that, and even better.
Yeah.
Right? Or maybe you're competitive. I don't know. Maybe you're like, I'll
I do like to have a little I do it at work a lot, I find, because I'm a manager. I work in a warehouse and for Walmart, so I'm a supply chain manager, and I have like a team of like 50 or so guys, and mostly guys, but there's a few girls too, but and then but I'm not like high level management to where I you just kind of like walk in, everyone's like, oh shoot, it's the big dog, so I have like, I'm like a grunt to them, but then I'm like the boss of these guys. But I also have to be nice to them because I'm, you should be like that servant leader.
You're winning them over.
Yeah, and so there's like these up and down management dynamics, and I've learned through. So like actually at my time in management and just my time in general at the theater, I learned how to navigate through a lot of this. And it's weird. Like on one hand, people are people, right? Like if you're helping people or serving people, like, and you've been doing that, and you guys know as pastors, like you're going to run into a lot of the same type of people or type of issues, but then no two people are also the same, right? Sure. So like there's that, it's like these two you had to hold in tandem together, right?
Yeah, you kind of subcategorize people, but you don't put them in a...
Right, but you can't treat them 100% the same because it's like, no, it's a different person, but I've learned to like at work where I have to be a little more politically correct because I can't just go out
for sure,
like Trump,
walking with a red hat on.
Exactly, and then you can't say certain things you want, like, oh man, suck it up, you're being a wuss, I get fired if I said something like
Stop
that.
being a girl.
Right,
Game over.
Like, dude, I know you just slept in, don't lie, you don't have that many grandmas, like she didn't die again, like you can't say stuff like that. So I've learned to like do these different like psychological like games, so to speak, of like, okay, where's this guy coming from? And I know I get it wrong sometimes, but and mostly it's just for my own entertainment and to get better though, like at reading and kind of seeing where people are coming from. That sounds creepy, but like in a more like to understand and kind of know this person better, but also know how to react going forward with these type of situations.
I'm sorry, go on.
Yeah, no. That, I mean, that's so one of those things is like mirroring, or kind of like when I realize, and I feel at times I even challenge myself, like, am I wrong for doing this? Where I'll maybe mimic, not mock, mind you, not mock, but like mimic someone's style of speaking, or someone's maybe their hand motions or the way they're, and it actually makes them feel a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
Because so at the theater, right, I was in Chino Hills, and it was very commonplace for a lot of people to either be in college or have already graduated college, and so they had that college degree. So, and it's not anything to do with intellect, but just on a level of, schooled knowledge, you have that, maybe they speak grammatically more correct and so on, right? And then I'm in a warehouse where most people do not have a degree, and these people, they move, and I'm not, their work is actually harder work, so I'm not diminishing their work at all. Physically, it's, like it's hard work. Or even if it's on power equipment, it takes a different type of skill, and in fact, they make more money anyway, but it's a different crowd for the most part. And so I noticed that, and I'm already an outsider because they know that, and I haven't been in that world. And even if I was, I still wouldn't fit in perfectly, because I did go like the college route and just different things. So, and different upbringing. So I don't fake, like totally act like I'm a different person or something, or I definitely not lying about anything.
You just lean heavy towards the scripture that says Paul was all things to all men.
Yeah, that's kind of what I try to be. Like, okay, and I noticed that I'm able to break through people who I normally would not be able to break through. And it's spirit, of course, but it's also, I think, a gifting in the spirit that God gave me to be like, okay, I'm going to try to adapt this. And by the way, I found out later, because I haven't studied this stuff like in school or anything, I'm not a psychology major, but I found out through like talking to people who have studied it or whatever, like, oh, it's actually like a real psychological technique that like, like a psychologist would use or something, to make people feel comfortable and at ease.
For sure.
Yeah. You like, and if you see it, you see, sometimes they're really corny at it, but you see politicians do it all the time.
Yeah.
Like AOC, when she was in, where was she? In Harlem or something. She was like speaking like in a different way. Yeah, to me that's like in a demeaning kind of way. Yeah, but there's
people that are like, I always believe that the schooling follows. Well, I know this. The schooling follows the gifting. So in other words, like God made people with gifts and talents. He made them that way, right? And then school systems, when they start, they're just studying what's around, and they discover things that are there, right? That God made a certain way. Now, after a society's been around for an extended amount of time, like ours, then it begins to shift where people view the school as the authority, as if they're the source of these things. And that's where today you meet a person like me, a construction worker, and if I get in a deep, thought-provoking conversation with somebody that feels that they're being toppled over by what I'm thought-provoking them on, or what I'm poking, and making wheels turn that don't normally turn, eventually a defense mechanism will show up, which is the desire to question what authority I stand on, right? So it's like, well, I studied here, I studied there. So clearly they've already adapted to this perspective that the schooling is the source of this knowledge, right? But the reality is that when these things started, right, when all these Harvard, all the big schools, they were originally seminaries, and they were created so that people can equip themselves to be able to be functional for they were seminaries for the word of God. But the part of the studies of people were taking people that would have been like yourself, right? And a natural that God made a certain way, who seems to be effective socially with people, and then begin to analyze why you are, and then write that stuff down, and then teach it to somebody else. And what you're saying is, it's like when you watch political people that took that course, or managers that are like, hey, looking good today, buddy. I like your jacket. Hey, if you mess up again, we're going to have to get rid of you. But I really like you. You know, that sandwich thing.
Yeah.
Like, bro, I despise stuff when I could see it coming a mile away. But if somebody's natural, you don't even notice.
I do that stuff, but I do it in a way where in
a natural way.
Yeah. And I feel like it because there's truth in that. Like you do want to, you know, even a lot of pastors will, I don't know what it is. Like they'll either say a couple like positive things about whatever. Like if you ask them to speak into your life, right? And then you guys know, I'm sure if you're counseling someone, you don't want to just come out and be like, oh, you're messed up. Like completely just boom, 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 boom. You know, maybe you lead with you know, I don't know. There's a certain approach to it.
You warm up to them and you win.
Yeah.
You win their trust.
Or or if you already have an established relationship, then you're able just to be like, hey man, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
That's
right.
different, right? So that's where I come from. That's where I try to come from. I'm gonna make sure I try to build and this is just in life, but also definitely at work as a manager. And I'm not perfect at it. I know there's some that will never warm up to me and they just hate my guts for whatever.
You look kind of like the guy who took their ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, I look like their older brother that like give them noogies and they just won't like, you know what I mean? Like something, Or there's some people who just resist authority no matter who you are or whatever. Or there's a number of reasons. But for the majority of them, the reason I'm able to kind of bridge that gap is because I've built some sense of, hey, they know I'm not out to get them. Like, that's not my goal here. Do I have to hold them accountable for certain things at times? And will I? Yes, but that's not what I'm about. My main goal is to give them all the tools and help they need to do their job more effective. And they know that when they're doing that, they're helping me. I can help them, and it's a win-win. And the wheels turn the way they should. And then when I'll be cool with them. And everything's going great, you know, I mean, I'll laugh at them. I know there's moments where they probably forget, like, oh, this guy's my manager, you know. And then I kind of remind them. No, I'm kidding. Right, wow. But like, cause I have to remind myself more like because you don't want to be that, we're just friends now, you know, it's like, because then they'll disrespect that authority. So you gotta be careful, but I've learned to kind of, and again, I don't do it perfectly, but I maneuver it to where I'm walking that staying in that nice gray area of, okay, I'm being friendly, we're cordial, we have a good relationship, we'll laugh, crack up about something, or I find something too in common. Let's say they're a UFC fan,
gotcha.
So am I, so we'll talk about that, and then that's just boom. I don't even have to ever like know anything else. Like we just talk UFC, and then we'll always kind of vibe off that, and you know, like, oh, we're cool, like, yeah, Tommy's all right, like he's, you know, we like whatever, and then I'll be like, hey man, like, but like whatever, we'll talk about the fight, but hey dude, like you can't be putting those boxes like that. Come on, you know. And then you're like, yeah, my bad.
And
you know?
he feels convicted to want to make that adjustment.
He wants to fix it for me. Like, hey, you know, sorry, I'll fix that for you. You know. And so
can I
go on.
So one of the things that there's a lot of people who will maneuver through life this way, like successful, become a good manager, become a good whatever. But those people are not under the direct, not all of them are not under the direct fire of the greatest enemy who has ever walked the face of the earth, taken down more loyal people than me, stronger people than you.
You know my boss? Oh, sorry.
No, it was you had to take it. It was a good one.
Sorry.
But being that there is an enemy that wants to stop the rare role that you're choosing to take on. One of the ways I know that he attacks is when we're people that have the gift of gab, call it, the ability to maneuver, is that when all the doors are closed or when no one's around, to be attacked directly from him as being a fake, or can slip into an identity crisis of like, who am I, right? And you see people like Jim Carrey deal with things like this. Like, I don't know if you ever seen to what extent he deals with that.
Yeah, I just saw him. I don't know if he still is, but the last couple of years, kind of off the rails with things he's saying, and weird interviews.
But but a lot of that comes from the attack of identity crisis of not knowing who I really am.
Yeah, it's like an existential crisis. Yeah,
right. And so, being that when a person is well-rounded as far as, you know, like a people genius, I would say that that's a term that should be looked into. You know, my mom said that a long time ago about me, and I
people
see it
genius?
For people genius.
That's a cool term,
So when you meet somebody else who's a people genius, you kind of know what some of the things they're going to face, you know, like some of the things that are going to show up when things start crashing around or whatever, or just situations in your life altering things, losing somebody that you're not ready to lose or whatever, things that I've faced in my life. And so part of that identity crisis is like when you like feel like you like all of a sudden a striking desire to cut out all of the bull crap. Like you're like, I can't, you know, I need to just be that. I think it's important, and I'll be praying for you for this, that all of your lines that you draw just come directly from the word of God, because that's where the Lord's able to defend you, and that character wise, you can bend, you can roll, you can lift, you can suppress, you can do all of these things character wise, right? But you've never stood and said, this is a line, or that didn't come directly from the Lord, which is a heavier also instruction for you to be a man who is in the word. Because a person like you can read half as much and give twice as much because of your natural ability. But the way that begins to crack is internally, right? Because when you're fighting a war that people aren't aware you're fighting, you know, like internally when you're being attacked, when you're dealing with things on your own, people like yourself, especially when people have a great sense of humor and they're very social, like it is very rare that people are aware of the fight that they're in, you know? And so
they're the least likely people to get asked, like, hey, how you doing?
Exactly,
or what are you going
they're
through?
going to, or you helped 1,000 people already in the last month and nobody's helped you.
Yeah.
I know the feeling, like, you know, you drop the person off in the warm home and people hug them, and then you're standing out in the snow looking through the window, and there's nobody there asking you how you're doing. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I just want you to know that, you know, God will put people in your life that will understand that, and they'll pray for you. But the way to really equip yourself, you know, with all that, like, where do I draw my lines as far as, am I putting on too much? Is just to remember that every decision you're making in your life is based off of the word of God, and that you'll decline anything that could do you benefit if it doesn't line up with the Lord, you know. And it's hard when you're up against that wall sometimes. You know, we saw Pence the other day, right, when he was like, I unapologetically stand on this view about, was it marriage or abortion, one of the ones that he talked about. But I saw it immediately in that moment. I was like, that's that, like, I'm not gonna, like, if I get everything wrong, I need to say that I believe this. I believe the Lord.
That man,
you know?
he's a pillar, man.
Yeah, dude, that's crazy. And I don't think a lot of people, you know, I mean, like, I know the way, like, the world sees, like, I watch Saturday Night Live and stuff. You know, I know the way the world sees everybody. I get it. But to me, I'm a bit of a people genius, and I'm a person who perceives people's character. And when I could see people that have, you know, immovable qualities, I'm like, my hat's off, even though, like, nobody even sees it, you know, nobody even knows what this guy's dealing with, you know. But nonetheless, I just want you to know, like, that'll be, you know, should the Lord continue to open up doors in front of you, that'll definitely be something I'll be
Thanks,
praying
man.
for you, dude.
And I mean, I appreciate everything you're saying right now, but you know, I appreciate everything you're saying, and I have there's definitely, you know, truth in what you're saying, as far as, I mean, it's all true, but to me, you know, applicable, and is what I mean. And not even so much like a who am I kind of thing, you know. Thankfully I've always been kind of grounded in that, and I think if I wasn't Christian now, I think I wouldn't be maybe as bad as Jim Carrey, but I'd be in that kind of a one reason real quick, it's not totally a tangent, but going to acting real quick on why I like it is I like that ability to be somebody else, to take on someone else's shoes and kind of pretend to live in that, and kind of with empathy and feel like, okay, what's it like to be this type of
embody that role.
Embody that role. And I'm able to adapt and kind of do different things. So I'm like, okay, I like that, and I like the challenge of it. Like, could you do this and that, you know? And I know you can definitely go down some dark paths if you do that, too
Well,
much.
and
but,
again, to what I said is that you'll be under the unique attack of an enemy who needs to destroy what you're uniquely choosing to do. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
But anyways,
Yeah.
continuing.
No, so I've always felt it, but it's more of a, I think, I don't know how to put it. Like I'm not gonna go act like I'm not Mother Teresa. I'm not going out there and just helping people and stuff. Like, oh yeah, But I have this where I give a lot. Like I'm gonna spend time with this person, this person, this person. I have a lot of friends, and I call them friends because maybe they don't even see it the same way. They might just be like, oh yeah, he's cool, whatever. But if anyone who I've like broke bread with, or we've laughed,
They
or
mean
we
something
like
to you.
like it's a friend, or we've ever in any way kind of like maybe we met up more than twice, like okay, it's a friend, but even more than that, like actual friends, like people that everyone would consider a friend. I have a lot of them. And I think one thing that my mom was giving me kind of like props for was that I've always been someone who keeps contact and makes an effort to not let these people just fade away. Like I mentioned at the start of this podcast, I have some of my good friends are from my elementary school days at the private school, and I'm not gonna act like it was only me.
No, but I get what you're saying.
A lot of it is, and then some of my siblings who are awesome people, and I think you've met a couple of them, maybe. Yeah. They well, my oldest brother, he's outgoing too, but I'm the only one really that has that. Like I kept like friends from way back, and even friends who maybe like we don't hang out that much at all anymore because their walk is just totally anti-God and all that. But like I'll keep them in that ability to like, well, Lord, anytime you want me to like plant that seed again, or
you keep that door open.
Yeah, I keep that door open, and because once you close it, most people like it's. Yeah. I mean, God can do all things, right? But it's
I got you.
Yeah, it's more unlikely that maybe someone else in their life God will bring to them again. But like you kind of, for you and them, it's been closed, So I have that, and I keep in contact with people, and I try to. I guess it's a way of like showing love to people, like I'm going to sit down. I like to meet with. I'm great in big crowds, but I'm also pretty good one-on-one. Like I try to like spend time with people, and I've realized though at times, like there's literally been weeks where every day I'm meeting with somebody, and it's just hanging out or talking or whatever. Sometimes 2, maybe even 3 a day. Like, I'm meeting with, I got Sal, I'm having lunch with Sal, and I'm having dinner with so and so. Then the next thing I'm having breakfast with this person, and
props to you. Dude.
I tone it down a lot. She kind of doesn't. Well, she might feel she knows, but she really doesn't. Because before we were dating is when I was like really like that, a lot. And
I'm just saying, being in a relationship with somebody that has that personality type.
Yeah, and I'm learning because she's told me sometimes like I can, and I'll put like other, like I just kind of like, oh, I'm gonna reach, and sometimes it's fun, like or just having fun. Other times it's just a way of keeping that connection with this person, And I know relationships are fickle things. If you don't nurture them, if you don't invest in them, they will fade. Yeah, and I mean, some of them are people we just like. Well, they hate the fact that I like Trump or whatever, right? Like we're gonna argue about that, but we're still friends, Like I had lunch with a buddy this week. Like he was one of the main guys, had my back on the campaign, like lifting signs for me, helping me with my website. Like he put in a lot of work. And we'll like argue like about Trump, what I mean? Like, and like he doesn't like how like I'll support this and that, and it'll even get heated in the past.
That's cool, bro. I
like
that kind of.
And I think it's for him. He's said it in so many words, but like he knows who I am, and he knows those convictions I stand on, even though if he doesn't agree with all of them. Yeah. And he knows ultimately like I'm going to do my best, and I'm not, and I'm serious. A man of
character.
Yeah. And he knows what friend I've been to him, and that. It's been
so that actually overrides all the other things.
Yeah,
that isn't like
as it should, and it's cool. and it's really back on him as a but quality too. The fact that he's able to see that and
he's
do that.
He's not one of these that just like turns a blind eye.
Right, because I had a lot of the others too, though, who were like that girl I mentioned earlier. Despite how kind I was to her, and despite the fact that like I ministered to her and I was very polite with her and all that, she was still able to just be like, oh, like F you, and you know what I mean. And so. Again, we weren't friends like I am with this guy, but it's that same concept of I was able to. He so it's a good quality on his part too. Like he's able to be like, you know what? No, like the other stuff is less, you know, it's not as important who we're voting for. I know this guy, you know? So it does hurt cause I'm not going to lie to you guys. It did hurt when I had a couple friends who
cut you off
because they're left leaning. Like they didn't want anything to do with my campaign. Like I have meals with these guys. We've been hanging out since college. Like they even said if one of us runs, we'll help each other out, knowing that we have different political views.
but
and two of them just like, no, like, and didn't even tell me directly. Like one of my other buddies had to like, hey, what's going on, guys? And I wasn't going to beg anyone to come help me on my campaign. So, yeah. Well, if you ever want to find out who like some of your true friends are, like run for office, like you'll find out real quick. And then some random dude that you were like said what's up to in high school, like we'll shoot you. I got you, bro. Like boom, sends you $100. You're like, what?
It's kind of like that when you're starting a church.
Yeah, it's like, dude, like awesome, you know. And then like your best homie won't like even be there, or like like, hey, sorry, dude, you can't send me $20, you know. Like, so you'll see some of that going on. And I'm pray for me on this one, but I'm trying to like where do I like, okay, you're cut off for that, or is it like, do I forgive, or is it neither? Just like, okay, like, well, you know, just let it be, and you know what I mean. But you know, the one side of me, like the fleshy side, is like, like, oh, forget them, you know, like they have no part with me anymore, you know. But I don't think that's the Christ reaction.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think one of the things like that the Lord, whenever He's specifically giving one of us regular people an opportunity to do something that He's really got His hand on, right? He's always going to put those little forks in the road for us to obtain the ability to believe we can do things in our own strength, and then simultaneously remind us that we got to where we're at because of Him. And it's always a tougher battle the more talented we are, right? Because you could look at somebody who did something amazing, they're not very talented, and they're just like, it was God. So then, and you're like, it was God. That's awesome. Right. But then that leaves you in a strange boat where you're like, so what about the talented person though? Like what, you know, and I think of stuff like that with like music, right? Like I make music. So it's
so do I.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. Sorry.
So no, it's cool. But yeah, you know, I think the important thing is just maintaining that knowledge in your mind that it's only God who can open up the doors, and then just utilizing your talents in the doors that He opens.
That's great stuff, man. That's gold right there, because I that's, you probably just hit the nail, being like transparent or vulnerable here, or whatever. I have like, that's probably my biggest, if not my biggest, one of my biggest downfalls, or even, I don't know if it's probably a sin, is the relying on my own strength. And it's weird. It's because it's not even, maybe it is. I don't, it's not like in a Donald Trump way of like, I'm just the greatest, the best, I can do this without anybody kind of thing. Cause it's not that. There might be some of that, like, oh, I'm talented, I could do this, or I can do it on my own. But I think it's more of like excitement. Cool, thanks God, I got it from here, and I kind of just like run off with like whatever I'm doing, and then I forget to like, well, hold on, God, is this what you want me doing? And sometimes if I'm pretty sure it is, then okay, cool. Then that doesn't mean you just forget about God though. Like, and I have that problem of like, for example, running for office, right? Like, okay, I do believe that's what God wanted me to do, and that He's called me to do, and but I'll kind of like do that, and like, okay, cool, I know I'm doing the right thing, but then throughout the process, I'm not continually looking to Him or seeking Him, or, and He's been very gracious with me, but I think at times I don't know if like maybe, but I got my butt kicked in the campaign, but I don't know, or not in the campaign, but on the results, right? The election. And there's a number of reasons to why, I think, but I think God will kind of let you take a little bit of a fall, or let you take learn your lesson, so to speak. Like, okay, like why you need Him again, you know, or why you should always need Him, not just like at the start or at the finish, or, you know, and that's something that for me, that's a big deal. Cause like, and what's weird is though, I don't like, there's times where and maybe it's just like I'm a pity party, but there's times where I honestly don't think like, cause I'm not, and I know people who are way more talented than me in everything, you know, or at least in like music, like, oh, way more, cause I don't like play an instrument or anything, but I have a buddy of mine who I make music with, and he's awesome. But he's just one of those guys like talented, like, I don't know, let's say you skateboard, right? And that's your thing. Like you're the skateboard guy. He's not gonna be as good as you, but he'll jump on and he won't be like, let's say you and me can at all. I can't, you know, he'll jump on and look all right. You know, like, dang, like I can't do that. Yeah. Or he'll
Natural.
And then anything music related, forget it. Like he's super talented, but even like witnessing, he just goes in there and he's like super bold and just goes after it. And you're like, dang, or, or I don't know, editing something on a computer, like, dude, how do you, like, you know, it's just like all these like different like things are like, dude, you're just like blessed with talents, you know? So there's times where I'm like, man, I don't have anything like that, you know? But then there's other days where that's my point though. It's like, it's me, right? I'm coming from my own, how I'm feeling or how I'm thinking about myself, or whoever complimented me last or whoever put me down last, you know, instead of being rooted in, what does God say about me? How has God made me? You know, and there is moments like that, and that's when I thrive the most. But I think it should be a daily, for me anyway, until it's so rooted, but a daily reminder, and probably even a couple times throughout the day. You know,
that's a good lesson. I'm reminded of Paul real quick. You kind of remind me of him. I'm tracking with your story this whole way and seeing how you have been prepared specifically with all these different like gifts, abilities, kind of like Paul. Paul was super cultural. He was born in Cilicia, meaning he had Roman citizenship. Yeah. He was a Jew. He was induced in Greek culture, able to talk to all these three different like regions. And then he had it in his heart after God saved him, like, I want to go talk to my Jewish brothers. And if I could just get in front of them and tell them my testimony, like, they'll follow me, they'll listen. Gets to that place in life. God brings him there in chains, preaches one of the best testimonies ever, and then riot. They beat him up and throw him in prison. And at that point, I'm wondering, like, man, like, he probably felt like he failed. Right. He probably felt like, dude, like all this work, my whole life moment. Of
or God abandoned him. Or yeah.
And then God tells him, be of good cheer, Paul. Like, you've witnessed to me in Jerusalem. I'm also going to take you to Rome now. Yeah. And it's like, that kind of reminds me of you and what you're doing and how God just used all these events in your life to bring you to this moment here now. And I'm kind of curious too, like, if you could maybe expound a little bit more on that whole campaign, like, some of the things you went through.
How did this? I know. I'm sorry, I'm taking so long.
No, don't be sorry.
Your first question.
Yeah, this is what we do. This is what we do, bro. So let's move the story a little bit along, which will probably be picked apart with a lot of our conversation as well. But so you're in this place, Parks and Rec, and now the transition into where you were at. Let's get there. Like what recently happened.
Okay.
So you recently.
So Parks and Rec, it's a 2-year appointment term. So that was March 2018 when I got sworn in, and then I March 2019 I got chairman. So this is important because I just felt, and I was not even right away, maybe about like a few months after, but I was kind of like, oh Lord, okay, so you went from taking me in 2017 to like, I think it was 2017, like slapping me on the head and telling me to get involved in local politics, right? And then, so I was just sitting in the council meetings, and then I get appointed early, March, February, and then by March 2018, I'm getting sworn in as a commissioner, and that happened all within a 6 to 8 month time period. And I was trying to say earlier, like, I just believe it was complete God's reward for me for being obedient, like plain and simple, just obedience, and maybe a little bit of rewarding that faith of doing it, because it's not hard to just sit in a meeting, and so I was, so then that took me to March 2019, where I was kind of the only choice to be chairman. And what I mean by that is, that's not a cocky statement. I mean, so the vice chair, she was chair the year before. So typically you want to share the love a little bit. Now it's commonplace for the vice chair to then become chair, but she was chair the year before. So it's like chair, vice chair, chair, like, there's 5 of us, like, you'd kind of want to share that with other people. Right. So she was out. So, then the other guy who's the chairman that year, just 2018 into 2019, right? He's can, but you just did it this year. So, because it's 1 year to be the chairman or chairwoman. And then one of the commissioners was in very bad health. She was battling a lot of
physical ailments.
Very physical, yeah. And I wasn't sure if she'll even continue. And God has been, she's a believer too, so she was sharing a lot of things with me that were pretty powerful. But she wasn't like taking on a bigger role with it when it wasn't a good idea, and I don't think she wanted to at the time. And then, so there's 3 out, and then the other guy was new, a brand new commissioner. Like, you don't usually like if you day one as commissioner, you're chairman. It doesn't work that way. Again, there's no rules against it, but it's kind of like okay. So then me. So like that's. You know what I mean? Like it was kind of like you're the chairman right now. You were chairman last year. You're battling a lot of sickness. You're brand new, and then there's Tommy. That's how it was. So I was like, oh, okay. So I didn't even have to. They're like, all right, yeah, I think we should pick Tommy. Like, okay, so they made me chairman, and all that is, I'm still commissioner, but as chairman, I was the one that would run the meeting. So I would do the majority of the talking. I'd call on the other commissioners if they want to say something, like. If you ever seen like a congressional hearing where there's Mr. Chairman, they're kind of like, all right, we call on the lady from Nebraska, like they're just kind of like
running the show.
Yeah, it's like that on a much smaller scale. And so yeah, if there's like public comments, I'm the one going through the meeting. In fact, the director even goes, all right, Chairman, it's your meeting. Like when we start it, and then I could delay it, like it's 5 minutes. We're gonna wait for Commissioner so and so longer. Because I got the gavel, I could you know what, let's start it now, or I'm gonna start it a couple minutes early, whatever. Like you have a little authority like that.
Have you seen those 2 surfer dudes who would go up? It's like on Instagram, and they go and they would just like complain that they need to like allow them to party. Have you seen those guys?
Yeah, I have actually.
I
have.
Yeah, it's pretty
yeah.
hilarious.
They go to
they go to like official meetings. Yeah, and they'll go
trying to get rights to party.
Like to party.
He's like,
gotta fight for your right to party.
They have to give them to the floor too.
Oh, it's actually pretty hilarious. Yeah, some guys get upset though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
when they're talking to them.
Sure.
Some like you can tell like want to laugh. The other ones are like up for like, oh man, they want to.
It's a big joke. Yeah.
Yeah, they go there and they're like they act like it's some serious issue they have. They have 5 minutes of the floor and they just talk. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, that as chairman, that's kind of how it was. But so that was 2019. I felt God kind of bringing me into, okay, Lord, you brought me from 2017, giving me that. Well, it's a little, but I think can be a big revelation to get involved in local politics. 2018, boom, commissioner. 2019, I'm chairman. And I don't know, maybe it was me, maybe it wasn't God. I think time will tell. But I was like, okay, well, 2020, like. The only upward step is city council, and then it would be like boom, like 1 year after the next, like God just like elevating me, right? And so I thought about that, and then here comes December 2019. One of the city council members who's been there since I was like a baby, like 2-3 years old, she just would keep getting reelected. She resigns because she's moving like out of town, like she just up and resigns for a seat. So that creates a vacancy on the council. So in January, they have to go through this whole, are we going to do a special election or are we going to do a appointment process? Now I was like, oh, appointment process, because that's easy. It's just you fill out a form, you write whatever they want to do, you do an interview, and then they could pick you. And you don't have to run a campaign or anything. So they were thinking about what they're going to do. Long story short, they had to, they didn't even have a choice because there's like a stipulation. If there's a vacancy and you're going to put on a special election, it can't be within so many months of a general election, which this one would have been because we had a general election this year. So they basically had to do the appointment process. Plus, it saves the city a lot of money, so it just makes more sense. But so I applied. This was in January, and I applied, and they made you write basically like an essay, like 5 questions, like why do you feel you should why are you qualified for city council? Another one is, what are the main issues you see facing the city, and so on, right? So I wrote like paragraphs to each one, worked on it kind of diligently, submitted that along with the resume and everything. And then we had a video recorded live interview it's on like the city website and stuff. So for city council. So the 4 council members were up there, And we went through this process. She was with me. I was like super nervous, and I think I was like one of the middle to go, and I didn't do as good as I would have liked, but I did okay, you know. And I felt like, considering everyone that was there, I would have put myself maybe like top 3 of the choices. Like there was like at least 2 others. Like, okay, like those guys are pretty good, you know. Like yeah, they seem like they'd be good candidates. And then they picked one lady, which I like didn't. Again, not nothing against her, but it's like I didn't see that coming, you know. And a lot of people didn't either. And the way it kind of went down, we were all like, it rubbed some of us the wrong way.
Voter fraud.
It was just kind of like, you know, I don't know about that. So
you saw a couple of $20 bills.
No, I know she had like a relationship with the with some of the majority of the council, and I'm not trying to put too much out there, but I was like, okay, it bothered me a little bit, rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
As did it some other people. So that was a huge motivator in running. I didn't decide, but it started, I think, my mom and girlfriend at the time were like, oh, I noticed you've been talking about running for council more than you were before. Like it wasn't as much on your mind, you know? I was like, it kind of made me want to like think about it more. Like, no, like let's let the people decide, you know, like the OG way, you know?
Let's go back at that again.
Yeah, like let's run it back, you know? And so I was, that was part of it. Right. And then, the main thing that kind of made me want to, that I decided like I'm going to run is, I was planning on proposing, and April of this year was going to be our 1 year of, dating. And so she didn't know this, but I was planning on, you know, getting a ring, talking to her dad and going through all the motions. And then on April 11th would have been like our 1 year from our like first real date. And I would have asked her on the 11th. But as you guys know, that's right when COVID went like crazy. It happened in like late March, and then by April they're like, shut it down, and you know, like everything's closing and the world's going crazy. I was like, what's going on? And so that just like stopped all my plans. And then as far as like proposing, so my plan, just so you know, was propose contingent upon her saying yes. We would then get married around like fall, like around this time, November ish. And I was like, okay, that's right, the same month of the election. So I don't want to be the exact frame of me running a campaign and doing the wedding and all that, planning in the same time frame. I was like, oh, okay, so the wedding takes, you know, precedent, and that's gonna be, I could run later, you know. But then that got halted, and you know, and then partly me just getting in this weird like COVID phase where like we just like going through the motions, working. We kept working. We're, you know, Walmart's warehouse, like we got busier actually. So just keep working, and then I got in this little motion, and like all of a sudden it's July, and I'm like, man, I haven't even, what's going on? Like, you know, or some things are kind of open, some things are still closed, and so I'm like, I gotta, you know, I can't let this just like stop my whole life, you know. And so I went, and a couple diamond places had opened back up, and so I went and got the ring, talked to her dad, and you know, did everything right. And then I'll spare you the details on the proposal, but then I proposed in late on the 28th, I think, of July. And basically when I realized all that, I was a little before that, actually, when I knew I was going to propose and it was going to be in July, and then I knew, okay, well, the wedding's not going to happen until next year then. It's not going to happen until 2021. I kind of was like, oh, well, why not then? The election isn't moving. Right. It's still in November 2020. You know, why not then? So, because the main reason, so the whole vacancy and, you know, not the way it went down and all that, coupled with the engagement / wedding getting pushed back, was the kind of, I'm like, okay, Lord, what are you trying to do here? Are you trying to, like, you know, and I was praying about it. I honestly didn't get a great, like, yes, do it or don't do it. But I felt like I had enough confirmation from people who were close to me. My mom, if you know her, isn't like your typical mom who's like, I love my mom to death, but she's kind of like the tough love mom, you know? She, like, if you're not good at something, she's not going to tell you you're good at it, you know?
That's cool.
And yeah, and so when she was so like, yeah, like and she came to me like serious one day, like, I think you should do it, you know? And I know she prays too, so that's something that I was considering as well, like, okay.
And she's not just like, my little boy's gonna do it. She's like,
no, that's not her at all. Yeah, like that's my grandma, you know. But like her mom. But no, my mom, no. She'd be like, oh no, like this,
Yeah,
or even at least like, I don't know, pray about it.
right.
But she was like, I think you should do it, like serious.
Yeah.
And then I talked to my oldest brother, and he was, he said YOLO, right? YOLO, like he was like half playing around, but then he backed it up with like being serious, like no, like for real, like why not, like. Like,
Right.
and that whole like you only live once mindset is just kind of hit me too. Like it's so true. Like God has only given us one life. Like I don't get to redo this. I'm not gonna be able to ever again
what you're
go
saying.
back and be like, hey, like I'm in my 20s. Like let me go back to my 20s and try to run for an office or do something different. Like no, it's gone, and who knows? I can die tomorrow. Like why not?
Yeah.
Whatever. Like let's.
What have you got to lose?
Yeah, like let's try
You
it.
won't regret the things you went for that didn't work out.
Yeah.
But you will regret wondering what would happen if
If
you
it never did it, yeah. So those kind of things, and then I was like, you know what? And of course, my girlfriend, soon to be fiance, was for it, and so I'm like, okay, well, all the people around me are like saying, yeah, and Lord, like maybe that is your answer, because I from God I didn't get a yes or no strongly. I did feel like. Not like COVID happened for me, but like, like there was events happening in life that he orchestrated. And I'm like, you know what, this is because I could like I said, I just told myself, well, I'm going to get married in November and that's that, so election can wait 2 more years or 4 more years, whatever. And, so yeah, I just decided like, you know what, I had no idea what I was doing, zero. So, but I go and, another little like thing that God just lines up. Like because it's coronavirus, the new city clerk, she would only be in the office. Now I didn't know this. I found this out every other Tuesday. Like that's it or something, right? And City Hall. And I'm hanging out with my buddy who I do music with, and I'm like, well, we're talking about it, and he's like, yeah, man, like go for it. And then I was like, all right, like let me call the city, and like she's like, okay, yeah, I'm here today. It's my my one day this. Every other week, that I'm here or something. I'm like, what? Like that just tripped me out, because she could have said, okay, let's make an appointment for next week. I'll meet you there, and give you, because of coronavirus, she's not working. She's working from home. But just the fact that I would have to like, okay, next Wednesday, let's meet at City Hall and you can give me the papers I need. She was already there like that day. And in fact, she's like, yeah, but I go home in an hour. If you can be there like soon. I was, yeah. So I drive down there and she gives me a stack of papers this big, like boom, of like do's and don'ts and like I'm like, do I need to hire like a campaign lawyer? And so it's like a lot. So I ended up getting like a treasurer to help out with some of the forms, but I was just little things like that. Like, I don't know if you guys you're tracking me on that one, but the fact like of all the one day I'm like, oh, let me think about it. Happened to be the day of
just a lot of stuff
filing.
that feels like the fingerprint of God.
Yeah, and I didn't know any of that. And so anyway, they call it pulling papers. So you pull your papers to start your process for running. And, I'll do a lot of things better if and when I run next time. But like I was just behind on a lot of it. Like I announced at a good time, but I didn't know what I was doing. I'm trying to make a logo and then a campaign slogan, and I'm just it's just so everything was like a huge learning experience.
Sure.
So I think
I feel like that right now with our recent album that we dropped, Tom X. Like, just trying to learn everything, dude. But
I love what you're talking about though, like of taking that leap of faith, because I think sometimes we are looking for the Shekinah glory of God to come down and tell me like he said yes and everything's going to work out.
And that didn't happen. Yeah.
I think I was talking with one of my friends just in terms of relationships, because he's going through like discerning God's voice and failures in the past, and it's like, you know what, dude, like you don't know, like we don't know, like you go with the wisdom that God's given you, the people he's placed you around, and you're not promised tomorrow. Like if God brought someone in your life and you saw like they were showing examples of Christian character and you went for it and it didn't work out, doesn't mean you were in sin.
Right.
It's like God allows these things in our life so that we can grow, mature, and it teaches us like, okay, don't do that. Don't do that. But I think sometimes when we get just pigeonholed into that place of like, well, unless like the Lord gives me but the Bible verse that's written on the floor, like then I'm not going to move forward. And I think I encourage Christians who are abiding in Christ and are not in sin to really pray and ask God for discernment, and then do what he puts the desire in your heart to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I got to remind myself of trying to be that middle of the road, because I like I said earlier, I can kind of be the other end of where like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do stuff.
Yeah.
like,
right.
and honestly, it's like, it's a good and a bad thing. Like, I thank you, Lord, for your grace after, but I'm also like, oh, well, that didn't end up so bad. So now I'm just going to do something, it's like,
Right.
well, God is kind of covering me, and he happens to like, either it works out and where it's just, oh, it's okay. Or it even works out great. And I didn't really even take it to God, but he just kind of had my back anyway,
Yeah.
So I got to be careful with that, to be like, okay, Lord, I don't want to like what the, I don't know what the word is, like, mock you, or just think like, oh, I'm going to do whatever. And you're just going to, like, I know he'll take care of me. You know what I'm saying though, right?
Yeah.
Like, I want to make sure I lean on him.
For sure.
Yeah.
I got something for you, Tommy. I really do, man. God's often spoke to me concerning the topic of soup. So I'll share something with you. So like, if you're making a good, not for a vegetarian, but just a good vegetable soup, you use oftentimes like a good chicken broth, right? Like, you get a solid broth going, and then add all the vegetables and the right seasonings and stuff, and you make yourself a really awesome vegetable soup, But it's not chicken soup; it's vegetable soup, even though it's got chicken stock in it to make it flavorful.
Yeah.
But you can't really call it chicken soup until there's at least a certain degree of chicken in it, right? Like, and you said earlier that as this thing unfolds, that I guess you said kind of jokingly, I guess we'll find out if it was like me or God,
Yeah.
And I'm with you. I've had a lot of chapters in my life, and he has too. And so I'm not an expert by any means, but this is something the Lord gave me, I think, for you, dude. So, so the big difference between God's will, if it was all him or if it was all you, is how much of God is in you. Because it's not chicken soup until it's got a certain degree of chicken in it.
Mm-hmm.
And you're a talented dude, and I don't doubt that, even just from the things that God gave you, not that he's doing, but just that he gave you, that you'll go far. Like there's a lot of things you could accomplish. But I think this is important, dude, at this stage, right where you're at right now, and what is going to happen from here on is the definitive line between something being God's will and it being our own is how much of God is in us. Because, we can, and Christians do it all the time. Like, we can do our thing and give God glory,
Yeah.
Like, but it is another whole other thing when you're doing God's thing, and I think God purposefully puts us in a place where we can kind of, without realizing it, choose whether it's God's will or not. Because we begin to, lean heavy on our strengths, or know that his grace, he's with us. He is, bro. He's not walking away from you because you're not on your word every single day. But it's a choice that you make to add more of that ingredient in your life to make it where your life. And here's the crazy part, bro. And I'm not trying to, always keeping in mind that there's a possibility that if it's more Tommy, you win. And if it's more God, you lose. But see, the big question in your life, Tommy, that you always want to know is, do I want God's will for my life?
Mm-hmm.
And once you settle 100%, like, that's what I want, God. I don't care if I look like a fool, I want your will in my life. Then the one guarantee that we have is that we will be the most effective our life can possibly be for the kingdom of God when we are fully in his will. And I could assure you, bro, like, you have my prayers, dude.
Thanks.
And what I share with you, I hope, is beyond just like winning or something. It's because I wish I had learned these things before I became, before I had to take some beatings I had to take, but I'll tell you what, bro, like, I've seen people blow right by me who had less than I had capability wise. and I've eaten humble pie, dude. And I've also been through traumatic things to the degree that I lost a lot of my confidence. Like, I was a 3-fold, 4-fold type of person, and then, you know, traumatic experience robbed me of like 2 or 3 of those things, and now all I had was this little scrap here, you know. But I do thank him for that, you know, because it was the only way that a knucklehead like me was going to learn that lesson, you know. And so, but better is the man who can learn a lesson because he hears what God's saying to him than a man who just carries on in his own way until he's got to be broken, you know. So, you know, dude, it's what a joy it is to hear your story, bro, and to see an anointed person, like, I don't want to overly spiritualize it, to see a talented person that God gave you. Like, you're very perceptive, Jen. You really are. I see that. You know, you're picking up a lot, and you speak not just about your own blind little single perspective. It's like there's a lot of angles to what you're saying, you know, and I dig that, you know. I'll definitely be praying for you, dude, and for those, and I hope that some of these things that God's going to teach you through marriage and all that will be refining and defining of like the man you're becoming as God's molding you. And, you know, one thing I want to say to you real quick, it's a parenthesis statement, but since there's 2 guys that are heading towards marriage, I'm going to seize the opportunity, you know, and that is when you face the difficulties that come upon you because of the frailties of your significant other, when you face the things that you're like, you know, when you're looking at other Christians and they seem to have it easy in an area concerning marriage that you're struggling, or you're seeing the frailty of the person you're in love with and that how that's hurting what you're trying to do or whatever, know this, that Jesus has the most difficult bride. Like, we're the bride of Christ. And it isn't a mark on the effective and awesomeness of a groom. It isn't a mark against him when he's catering, or when he I don't want to say catering, that's the wrong word. When he's tending and loving to the frailties of his wife. Because men, for some reason, think that the greatest marriages and the greatest men are the ones that have just some submissive woman that's just doing whatever they say, and just like never has her own issues where she's falling apart or whatever. But, you know, if that's the mark of the greatness, then certainly Christ is out of that category, because his bride is like a very difficult, right? So
that's an interesting way to like think of it. Yeah, that's I never even thought of it like that.
Neither did I until I was in it, you know.
Right. No, I mean, I've read I know it says that in the scripture, like we're the bride of Christ, and like I've heard sermons on being the bride of Christ, but I never. And that we should treat the wife the way God, you know, like I got, but the exact way you put it was very like, whoa, you know, that was,
we're a bad bride sometimes.
Not just on that one, but on the end of what we're supposed to do to be like a good groom.
Yeah. Cause you find, especially when you're a man who feels that you have a tremendous calling to do big things. One of the biggest ways that Satan will attack the person you love the most is by making them feel like they're the reason you can't do it. Or like they're the reason why you can't do what God made you to do. And even worse, when Satan's infected your mind with that, and you begin projecting that stuff onto a person, that you're crippling me to do what God made me to do. And that's when a person needs to stop and remember what, like that thing I just shared with you, you know, like, well, Christ's power was magnified in the way that he demonstrated to those that were frail around him. And so that also is a mark of an amazing leader, right? Like a person who can judo like frail people into more strength, right? More personal strength. You become a person who's even more dynamic because you know how to work with people, you know? So
no, that's awesome, man. That's
super dope.
Golden little nuggets there. Yeah. Gotta chew on those tonight. Really, man.
Right now or something to ruin everything.
That's good stuff. I think we're getting married like a week apart too, or something.
Really? Are you getting married in April?
April 2021. Yeah, April 3rd. So for me, it's 4, 3, 2, 1.
4, 3, 2.
Yeah.
That's
right
crazy.
on.
Do you
Yeah.
surf? I'll invite you to my bachelor party.
I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah, I
dang
went
it,
to.
dude.
I haven't even figured out what we're doing yet. We're gonna have a little COVID party or something. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll keep it hush, dude. We won't make you look like Gabby.
Yeah. That's my boy. Gabby. Yeah. Did you hear his apology? Oh my gosh.
I've seen all these memes where it's like him in a clown outfit.
Yeah,
like.
dude. He's like, we're all human and we fall short sometimes. And when I got there, it was quite larger than I thought it would be, and so I should have got up right away and drove away. I'm like, dude, like, he's like, I should have just turned back. And like, first of all, who's gonna do that? You know, it's like, hey, where'd the governor go? But it's just like, don't pretend that you didn't know. If you're gonna apologize, just say, hey, you know what?
That's funny, dude.
Like, part of what he said was good, but it's, I know he doesn't mean any of it, but it's like, just fake it better. Like, don't say like I should have got up and drove away. And it was bigger than I thought it would be. It was, I don't know. I was watching it just like, oh my gosh.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, finish your, because I want to get into your political views, dude. I really do. Like, I feel like you've shared a lot of that. But I also kind of want to. So what happened at the end of this campaign?
I lost. Yeah. No, I lost.
Pie in the face,
Pie
he
in
said.
the face. Yeah. No.
It was tough, huh?
Yeah. It was a.
Humble pie.
Yeah, not humble pie. I didn't think I was gonna win, to be honest. But not in a. I don't think it. Yeah, please, thanks. Not in a bad way, but.
I got
It's
you.
just like it was a stretch, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I'm down, Lord. Let's go. Yeah, but you're never like,
Right.
I should have all worked.
Yeah, that's like, hey man, Mike, you're gonna fight Conor McGregor like in 6 months, like train, all right? You're like, yeah, like you don't, like you're like, yeah, I'm gonna do it, like big payday, cool, but like you don't think you're gonna win. Like, if you did, that'd be amazing. But like, he slips, ankle breaks, you like, yeah, taps out, yeah.
Hits his chin on his own knee.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't like be like, yeah, I'm gonna win this, you know what? I mean, I'm exaggerating, but I thought I had a little bit better chance than that. But
I got you.
I knew it would be for me to come in the top two. There were 7 candidates. Okay, so for 2 seats, so there's 2 seats that are open. One is like the incumbent. She's been elected before, so she's running for re-election. Anytime you're running against any incumbent, this is true from local office all the way up to president. It's tougher to beat them. Not impossible, but tougher. And unless they're like horrible, right, or something, but
or people are making them look really horrible,
or that, yeah, and so, she's a good councilwoman. Like honestly, if I wasn't in there, like she would have been like, yeah, like go vote for her, but you have to promote yourself when you're running, But sure. I like her a lot and respect her a lot. I was like, okay, and then so everyone knew she was gonna take first. Right, so it was all like, who's gonna take that second spot? There was
who's catching the buffet.
And then so the other lady is like the half incumbent because she was the one who was appointed back in January. And that's, by the way, this is don't quote me on this. I can get fact checked, but I think it's the most candidates have run for a Diamond Bar City Council race. I'm pretty sure. So so there's 5 members, right? 2 run and then are up. Like now in 2020, and then the next 2 years from now, the other 3 will be up, and then so on, right? So every 2 years, because it's an odd number, so it's either 2 or 3. Now, when there's 3 up, you have better chances of winning because you could take third and win. This election, you take third, you're just the first place loser. Like it looks good, like oh hey, you took third, but like you're not gonna you didn't get elected.
But you still sit at that table.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So this time it was only 2, so I knew that's. But I think so many people jumped into the race because, and I don't want to just say so many people, but like qualified people, because a couple times in the past, like some people have run and like they weren't too serious people, and like in the community they weren't that even well known, or they weren't a commissioner, or they weren't, they just like, they didn't even campaign much at all, But this time it's like all but one guy, and he could have been a great candidate. He just chose not to make signs or campaign at all. He was the only one who really didn't do anything for the campaign. But the other 6 of us were all like, we're in a slugfest, you know, like
Going.
we're all have signs, we're all doing our little rallies, trying to do everything we can do. And then with COVID, I felt like it hurt me. I'm sure it hurt some people, but me in particular, because
You get to shine the way you could.
yeah,
Your strong point.
oh, definitely not. Yeah, in fact, I had many people like, oh, like, yeah, we saw you on there, like you were okay on the, because we did like a little town hall debate thing. Like, but me in person, like, oh, like you're way different.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Real compliment.
Yeah, and I was like, way different. That's not good. Like maybe a little better, but way different. You know, like how.
Man, you were a spaz before.
Yeah, you were stiff up there, but now you're cool. So I was like, oh man, I didn't like thanks. But I had I didn't get to shine the way I would. I didn't get to campaign the way I would have liked to. Yeah, the whole like, oh, don't come close, and the So there was just certain flaws and then mistakes I made because of that and other things that I was like looking back. I'm like, man, I wish I would have done this differently. But so there were 7 of us running, and for only top 2 seats. So right there, it's not like looking good, right? And then we all know that one lady's super popular. She turned out to be even more popular than we thought. Like
everybody was just getting scraps. Even number 2.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she took. So there's 60,000 people in Diamond Bar. There's about 30,000 registered voters, and everybody gets 2 votes. And even out of those 30,000, not all, about half of those vote.
Oh, gotcha.
You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, so there's roughly, give or take, 15 to 20,000 people who are probably going to go vote. And then you have 2 votes that you could cast each. You could just vote for one person, but you could vote no more than 2, right? Obviously, you can't vote for the same person twice, though. So it makes the numbers look weird. So like there was like 30,000 votes casted, but about 18,000 people who voted, right? That makes sense?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because some people voted for 2. A lot of them voted for 2. Some people didn't, though. That's why that number is a little weird. Yeah. So you could go up there and be like, I'm voting for Sal and Mikey. Or you could do, I'm just voting for Sal, and that's it. So anyway, out of those 30,000 or so votes, she took over 12,000 of them, number 1. And that's like, I think, a record in Diamond Bar of the first place.
Landslide.
Yeah.
2 years ago, the lady who took first took 10,000 and something. We're like, whoa, and so she took 12.
So props to her. Like,
She smashed it. Yeah. The number 2 guy was the one who came out of nowhere. Not that he wasn't good or anything. It's just no one really. I didn't think he would win. Not just me, but he was only been in the city a little while. He had his first commission meeting with me like 2 months ago. So he wasn't even.
What was his success? What do you think that was?
Well, to be honest with you, I mean, it's not be like totally PC to say, but I think it's a race and demographic thing in Diamond Bar. The city's over 60% Asian, 60-something% Asian, and
he's Asian.
He's Asian, yeah. And the top 2 are as well, and then it's like 20-something% Caucasian.
I'll say it then. So they were like, we know this girl's good, and this guy's Asian.
Yeah. I mean, in reality, that's kind of what it was, because then I'll explain a little more. But there was those 2, and then it's about 20-something% white, and then about 10% Hispanic, and the last like 10% is just like everything else, right? So with that, I was like, okay, I knew it'd be a problem, but it was a bigger problem when I was going out, and I was you
needed to be put in front of people so you could win them over with your personality and your ability to communicate.
And then that was hard. It didn't come through through Facebook posts.
Right,
and
for sure.
And then I also didn't do things like, I didn't even know about it till like a few weeks before the end of the campaign, but about boosting your posts and paying and turning them into ads. And I'm like, why am I seeing everyone else's stuff? Oh, shoot. Like they boosted it. And then I finally go to boost it, and they're like, oh, you have to do it like 3 weeks in advance because because it's a political post. It has to be viewed and approved. Then they send you a snail mail thing, and I'm like, oh, so all these people, they knew about this beforehand, and props to them. Like, I guess they did research or whatever, but that's what I mean. I was just, everything was learning. Like every step of the way for me was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Let me try to figure this out.
Write all the stuff down.
Yeah, so I was just trying to figure it all out. Like that's something now I know next time. Like, oh, I'm gonna boost my posts early. Like get that approval that I need to get, because then I think you only need to do it once, and then you can boost like as many posts as you want to, and it's honestly not even that expensive. So You can put like what demographics you want to target, what political leanings.
That stuff exists musically too.
Yeah, and it's crazy. And by the way, I'm like a dinosaur when it comes to social media and stuff. And,
Me too.
And like, yeah,
I got this kid right here.
I'm really bad. I should have been born in like the 50s because I'm pretty bad with that. But so anyway, that's like one thing that I learned a lot. And then I was inhibited with the not being able to hold large gatherings or meet a lot of people face to face. And that hurt me. But then you look at the results of the election. There was this one guy, Sam. He's Hispanic as well, also conservative Republican. I don't know, how conservative, but he comes off conservative. He's definitely a Republican. And he was all over the place. He had the most lawn signs than anybody, like obvious, like when you're driving through the city on people's properties, which means votes, right? Because you could put 1 million in the streets. That's great. That just means you spend a lot of money.
But people are backing you.
Yeah, but like if it's on people's property, they're like, oh, I'm backing this guy. Like I'm voting for him, And he had, I talked to him after. He said like 200 on people's, like, so that's like 200 different households, So most have at least 2,
Right.
But so everyone was viewing him as like one of the top dogs. Like he was going to either take second or third, like for sure, so when the results came back and it was the one lady and then the other guy in second, Asian guy, and we're like, what? And then third place was the one who was appointed. And so she was also getting backed by the first place lady. They were backing each other.
Got you. Okay.
Plus, she was getting endorsed by
you'll go first and I'll go second.
Yeah, by 2 of the other council members who aren't up for election. 2 of the 3 who aren't running right now. We're endorsing those 2. Okay, which is huge because they have a big following of people, and they're like, "Hey, vote this person," So, okay, yeah. So, first and third had that going for them. Plus, first was already elected, and she's Asian, so that she had. And she's good, right?
Yeah.
Like she's a good councilwoman. So like she killed it. And then the number 2 guy though, there was a 4,000 gap. So he took 8,000 votes. But like just the first and second gap is huge.
Yeah.
And keep in mind there was only 18,000 people who voted, and there was 30,000 votes altogether. Because so out of those, there's a 4,000 gap between first and second. And then after that, it was like 1,000, pretty much. After everybody, like everyone beat each other by like 1,000 votes. Yeah, which isn't much. 1,000 is like, okay, you're kind of close to them. But it went the 2 Asians, the 2 Caucasians, and then the 2 Hispanics. So the guy who everyone thought would take second or third, we all did, because like when he would post something, he would get the most likes by far, even more than the number 1 lady. Like he would get like 100 something likes.
He was banging out the social media.
Oh yeah. He came out with great videos, and he was doing all the right things. He was like, he got businesses to endorse him. He had the most on people's signs. He had the biggest like posters. He was honestly, I think he and I were hustling the most, to be honest with you. Yeah. Some of the other people just is like some Zoom calls and stuff, and I'm not knocking them, but he and I were kind of doing a lot of more.
In the work. Yep.
Like I did a couple rallies in the park. I did a firefighter fundraiser held by my campaign where we kind of did not a fundraiser but like a supply drive. Got water bottle. We got her whole like SUV full of water bottles, Gatorades, protein bars, donated from people in the city, and then we dropped it off. By the way, that was like a super blessing to them. That's a side story, but they were like, oh, we needed this,
That's cool.
Yeah. And then we did one. What didn't turn out as well, but one for law enforcement as well. But it was my campaign hosting this, and I was there, and I think because of COVID and because of my posts, sometimes we're getting lost in the feed because I wasn't like boosting them where everyone, like it just wasn't like sticking that well on certain things. And, but anyway, nonetheless, I was doing it, I was like out there, I was posting it, and I was trying to make things happen. I knocked on, a few hundred doors, and anyway,
you got prayed over at Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills.
That too. Yeah, and I know I got some votes for that. I know that helped me. I don't know how many, but I probably got a couple hundred from that at least. And then, I was praying for that to happen too. I was like, come on, Lord, like they're over this, like the most political church ever. Like they're over here, like they're begging people to run, and I'm like, here I am, like this is my church, and I'm running, and I'm like, are they gonna like pray for me or anything, and I know he does public endorsements, and I kind of was getting some resistance, and I just prayed about it, and then again, God just took care of it. Like she calls, actually my fiance, because she knows the lady who like runs their political ministry, and she's like, yeah, like have him, call me or whatever. So I call her and set it up, and God took care of that, and that was a huge blessing and just an honor to be up there on the stage with all the other candidates getting prayed over. I think race was a huge factor in it. And again, I'm not saying racist. It's just they vote. Sometimes people vote their own. And I even spoke to the number one lady. She's like, yeah, I think you're right. Because I like congratulated her after. I was like, hey, great job. Like you killed everybody, But when I saw how low I talked to him too, the other guy. I'm like, dude, he beat me by like 1,000 votes, and I only beat the guy who didn't do anything. Like, I'm kind of glad he ran because I would have been dead last if he didn't. So like, yeah, I didn't take last, But I came in sixth. The guy came in fifth. We were all thinking second or third for sure, maybe first. Honestly, there was a point where I was like, he might take first place because this guy.
He was everywhere.
Yeah, they even did polls on on the Facebook Diamond Bar groups, like who would you guys gonna vote for? He got the most. Like, and these are real Diamond Bar voters. Like, oh, Sam. He was getting the most. So he was like, yeah.
He felt like Hillary when Donald won.
Kind of like what happened? Fake polls. I'm like, I want to recount. So it was when I think that was a big part of it, and then it just exactly mirrored the demographics of the city. And I think because I even met people on the trail, like one lady, Christian lady, loved everything I was saying. We were vibing off everything. She's like, oh, I'm sorry. Like I voted. Oh, the vote by mail hurt me too. Cause I was out there. That like kills, like it took off like 3 critical weeks of campaigning where like half the people like voted already, So like you're meeting them, they like you and everything. It's like, sorry, I voted. Yeah, I already turned it in, And
I just gave my last dollar to the last guy.
Yeah, and so I met one lady. She was like, oh, like she was Christian, and we were just in conservative. And she's like, yeah, and she's like, oh, I'm like, oh, well, if you don't mind me asking, like, who'd you vote for? And she's like, kind of like embarrassed, like a little bit. Laughed. She's like, oh, I voted like Stan Liu. I just looked for the Chinese name, And I was like,
oh, that's cool. She told you the truth.
She told me straight up, yeah. And I was like, dang. And I had this like bad feeling. I was like, how many thousands of people are doing that? Like like, oh, I'm gonna vote for the a name that feels comfortable or whatever.
Yeah, or I mean, how many your favorite celebrity just gets up and says like, I like this person. You're like, well, I never read a book. I never asked no questions, but I like this celebrity. I'll just vote for whatever they vote for.
Yeah. I mean, Tito Ortiz, the UFC fighter, he just ran in Huntington Beach City Council and won. And I'm not saying like he looked like he was campaigning and doing right things to his credit, but
people were like, I know that
but
name.
But I think he took first by like a good margin. I'm like, well, yeah, he's a celebrity. He's like super famous, and so that helps. But I think so. My point is though, that guy, he's actually like sweet guy, awesome guy, but he was like running as a Democrat, even though it's a nonpartisan. He had like endorsements from the County of LA's endorsement. Democrat Party like endorsed him and one other guy, and they were like putting those on people's doors and stuff. So I'm sure he was targeting those people, but I'm sure had she known that, she probably wouldn't have voted for him. But maybe I don't think she would have. But you know what I mean?
Maybe she would have though.
Maybe she would have, because certain people vote race over party. I know Hispanics, that's definitely not the case, because I meet them and if they're some were like, well, what are you? Like, they don't care that I'm a young Hispanic guy, like, running for office. They're like, that's cool, but, like, well, are you Republican or Democrat?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh.
Red or blue?
Yeah, and I'm like, Republican. They're like, okay, cool. And then they vote for me. Or, I got a lot of that, but I also got some, like,
nope.
Oh, no, nope. Like, thanks, no thanks, or won't vote for you, like that. Had that happen too. And I'm like, okay, so for them, it's not, they clearly don't care that I'm the same race, But, I guess it's like if you're not informed, and that's the vast majority of the voters, like, yeah, we're on those Facebook groups, but there's only, the largest one actually has a lot, but 11,000 of them. But some of those people don't even live in the city anymore, or they used to live there or whatever. And and not all 11,000 see every post and whatnot.
Or they just want to talk crap about people that they agree with.
Yeah. And so, but that's the biggest one. The other ones are a lot smaller than that. And, so you're only reaching a certain small percentage of the people in that are voting. And so most people, if they don't know, they're just gonna vote on whatever, like a name. Like the one guy below me, I'm sure got a lot of votes. Like I didn't even beat him by that much. He did 0 campaigning, but I had a buddy of mine who voted for him and me, and I'm like, why would you vote for both of us? Like you're kind of canceling out my vote. Like only top 2 win. So like you could just vote for me if you're my like actual friend, you know. Like other voters, it's different. Like hey, okay, vote for the 2 you want. But he's like, because the guy's a forensic scientist. That's what he put under his like name. He's like, oh, forensic scientist sounded cool. I'm like, how many people were doing that too? Because he had like, I'm like, this guy better not beat me, because I beat him, but I was like, man, he got a lot more votes than anyone would think. He did like 1,600 or something, like without campaigning at all. Right. So that was kind of trippy, But
so what was that like then after you found out that night, that day?
Oh, I was bummed. Yeah, I was pretty bummed. Yeah. Was I bummed? I don't know. I think I was bummed. Yeah, I was kind of like...
you ugly cried, huh?
No, not that bad. I was more bummed at like the performance, like how that I was like second to last. Not that I lost, because I winning would have been the most ecstatic thing. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I won, But... And I don't think they're just saying this to me, but when I talked to pretty much all the candidates after... They all were kind of saying a similar thing. Like they thought I was going to take anywhere from second to third, maybe fourth, like that range, like not sixth, Yeah. And so the first place lady, she was like, yeah, I thought it was either going to be you, this person, or that person who was going to take second. Like I knew you, like the 3 of you. And I think as we were kind of doing the most, and just it seemed like our campaigns were taking a little more momentum. But again, there was no like official polls or anything taken, so it was kind of hard to gauge. But so I'm not just gonna throw it was race and there's nothing I can do about it. Like I know of course I could work harder and do different things. But
I think like an opportunity for you to really get in front of people is a big thing.
Huge, yeah. And when I was starting to do that, I was getting votes every time. And so here's one thing I should have done earlier, but because of COVID, I didn't. People don't like you knocking on their door, just period, right? Pre-pandemic, like they didn't, it's like, oh, who's there?
That's who not to vote for.
Yeah. Some politician guy bugging me, But so I had that mindset, and that's true for most people. But and then you couple that with the virus and people being nervous about that, and they definitely don't want some stranger coming up to their door and talking to them. So I didn't. And I know none of us were doing it too early on, as far as I'm aware, because I would have caught some wind of that. But it was kind of late in the game when I even started knocking on doors. I don't know exactly, but maybe a month out, something like that. And but I noticed I was getting like 4 knocking on doors, because you're at least half don't even answer. But out of the 50% that do answer the door, if you're getting like 1 in 4 people to like be like receptive or even say like, yeah, I'll vote for you or something, that's like pretty good. I was getting that. Like I was getting pretty good, like of the people that were answering.
Got you.
About like I would say 1 in 4 were like, oh yeah, I'll vote for you. Like, yeah, okay, cool. I was running into a lot of, oh, I voted already, but I was also running into a lot of, oh yeah,
I wish I would have known. Or
some people, yes, a lot of that. I wish I would have known about you, man. Like, oh, I would have voted for you, like 100%. And I was also getting people who said they did vote for me already. That was building my momentum when I would hear that. I was like, oh, sweet. Like, and then I always was curious of like, why, and some people were like, oh, I saw you at the church and I voted for you. Or other people were like, I saw that you were young. I liked young. That was a big thing, like a young
I think
person.
That's an angle big time for you.
Yeah, it actually was a positive angle for me. And so they're like, yeah, we think someone young should do it. Other people are like, I liked what you were saying on your website. Like, so I voted for you, or I'm going to vote for you. I'm like, oh, cool. So I was picked, but overwhelmingly it was like, I was getting some like, no thanks, or don't bug me, or,
but it was probably that hopeful like stuff that actually hurt the worst when you were like Really? Like,
It did. Yeah, one guy was like so like looking at me. I was like, dude, I wish I'd met you before. You're a real cool dude. And he was like, you know, he's like a retired cop. He had like you would have never guessed it. But he had like a long beard. He looks like an ex hippie, but
probably a SWAT.
yeah, something or undercover or something. Yeah. But he's like, his eyes are all like red. But he was a cool guy, and we were chatting, and like we were like totally like vibing and hitting the same issues. They're like agreeing on everything. And he's like, man, like I wish I knew about you. But he's like, hey, he's like, I'll tell you what, my roommate's here. He hasn't voted. I'll tell him to vote for you. So this wasn't a wasted stop. And I was like, oh, cool, you know. But things like that, like I was running into, and I'm like, I should have been out here earlier, despite the pandemic. Because I mean, most people, honestly, I only had like 3 people, maybe 5 at the most, that were like bothered about the like, oh, mask. And so I had one, you know. But I would step back, like, you know, it's polite when you knock to not stand right at the door anyway, right? Like, it's just like, that's intimidating, or why are you so close to the door? But I would stand way back, you know, and then if I noticed they had a mask or whatever, I'd put mine on.
Yeah, sure.
But I mean, I was more than 6 feet anyway, away. Right. And then, but I was getting those kind of, like, I was like, man, I should have been doing this earlier, because that was like, I even said, like, that was my ticket. Actually meeting people, you know, I was getting way more reception than my posts, you know, no matter how nice.
Now you're just one of many faces. Yeah. But you interact with people, and it's like, oh, this is a different reason.
Yeah. Or I was getting a lot of people being like, hey, I'm going to vote for you. You're just the only one who's come up to my door. The fact that you're putting in the work. Like, they're like, yeah, you're hustling out here, and like, you know, walking up the hills in the heat, you know, and we're going to, I'll vote for you. Like, they didn't even want to hear like where I stood on anything. There's like, hey, you're out here and hustling. Like, you got my vote, you know.
Hard work, man. Yeah, we know sometimes when I think about like if I would have done things different, or if I could have made things better, I have to remind myself, I'm like, you know what? God knew that I was going to make those decisions, those moves. I think sometimes we feel like there's almost 2 options and 2 realities of what could happen in the future. Like, we're like, oh, like if I would have done this, maybe I would have been here or in this place at that time. And I'm reminded that God is sovereign, because sometimes we think like, oh, like, let's say, for example, sometimes we think we miss out on something that could have happened to us. Let's say it's something bad. Let's say it's like you're driving home from work and you usually get off on an exit. And then for some reason you're like, oh, you know what? I want some donuts. And go get some donuts on the next exit. You go over there, and then the usual exit you would have got off on, you find out on the news that next day, like a gas station blew up right at that time. And you're like, oh, dude, like I missed, like that would have been me. I would have been dead. And we think like we missed something that could have happened because we don't know the future. But in God's eyes, like, you were never going to be there. Yeah. You were never meant for, and I mean this with all respect, like, you weren't meant to win. Yeah. But the cool thing is that because God knew that already, it's like, he didn't have plan B ready for you after you did that. God has his plan for you that you're still walking in today. Yeah. Which now it's like, okay, God, like, I learned a lot from that. Where do we go now? Yeah. You know? So that's something I see in your story that's pretty cool. Yeah, yeah. And now to kind of segue, because I know like we could go back and forth with Mike and you guys a lot. Like, yeah, I love it. But what, you got time restraints?
No, I don't know what.
Yeah, yeah.
What time is it?
It's like 9 o'clock right now.
Okay, maybe, yeah. I don't want to be
kind of wrap it up. Okay, gotcha.
I could be here all night, but she's got work. So
no,
yeah,
that's appropriate. I just want to get one question out for you. Yeah. Like, I want your opinion on where we are at in our state, in our country right now. Just kind of like your perspective of what you've seen. Where you stand as a believer with this of like, dude, like, where are we at right now? You know,
politically.
Yes.
Yeah. It's polarized pretty bad. I think the worst it's ever been.
Explain that polarized.
There are 2 sides, and it's over here. It's North and South Pole. You know, it's like the gap between them is very far. Other than like Civil War times, it's never been something like this before. And unfortunately, this sounds bad, but back then at least it was like a geographical difference, right? Like, oh, you're in the north or south, you know. now it's every state has that. Like, yeah, there's some states that are like California, way more blue, or other states that are way more red. But even within one state, I mean, you can watch it when you're
They
watching
hate each other.
Yeah, I mean, there's you're gonna have Trump's just for Trump and Biden, right? But you're gonna have Trump, and then you're gonna have Biden people all within one state that are, maybe different counties, and even within one county, everything. Since it's a political divide, it's not by region or by anything that you can kind of just easily separate, and like make better, or even a civil war wouldn't even be as smooth. Not that war is smooth, but you know what I mean? Like, okay, the North and South, like we're this side versus this side. Like, no, it's literally all intertwined. So
why do you think we're like that? Because like I think sometimes my bubble that I'm in, I'm like thinking like, well, it's like the Christians versus the world, but in reality it's like Republicans versus Democrats is what you're talking about. So that's not all Republicans are Christian.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, no.
So why do you think that is? Just
well, there's definitely a spiritual dynamic to it, 100%. There's people, and you can even, I guess only Trump and God know, but you can even argue whether Trump is saved or not saved. I believe he's had a huge, that God and the Holy Spirit have revealed themselves and touched him in a way that I'm sure has never happened in his entire life, just by running for president and being the president.
That much people praying for you.
That much people praying for you. Prayer is powerful, and just praying for you, and that much hate against you, and all that, right? And you can see it in his demeanor, and the things he says and the way he says it, that he's different than just when he was just a billionaire, having a show. Yeah. Even when he just first started. Yeah. But, so that being said, I think that a lot of people have, like, you could be a Republican who you're not Christian at all. You don't even say you're Christian, but you like the values, or you respect it, or
call yourself old school.
Or old school. Yeah. Or something, or like a Jordan Peterson. He's like a, genius psychologist guy. Right. And I'm sure you guys know him, and he's not Christian, but like, he'll make the most intelligent, like, Christian defense argument, and you're like, okay, but he's not a believer. Like, I don't know. I think he's atheist or something, but he
doesn't mention, but he said he's not a believer.
Right. And, but he's not like a Bill Maher who like goes after believers he's at least fair. He goes after like all religions, but so I think that's one aspect of it, so it is in a way Christian, not Christian, but it's not just that, because you have people who are like, yeah, I'm not Christian, or I don't practice it. Or then the ones who, yeah, I'm Christian, but they don't live their life like it at all. Like, I don't mean they sin here and there. We all do. But like, you would never tell that they're a Christian, but they're going to vote for like the person who's like defending religious liberties and the person who's doing all that. Right. So there's that whole aspect of it. And then there's just the side of like, it has nothing to do with, like you were saying, nothing to do with Christianity at all. Just what some people consider common sense, like, hey, no, like, don't tax all our money and create socialism. And I work hard, like, I want to keep my money, and I want to have guns, and like, it has nothing to do with Christian or not, but they're just like, no, I align with this party, and so there's so many things where, and then you have people who are becoming more and more one issue voters. So race, that's it, that's all they care about. So if Republicans are racist, or Donald Trump's racist, then they're gonna vote Democrat, and that's it. Or, I only vote off of because I'm gay, I'm gonna vote for the party that's pro-gay. Yeah. So I'm Democrat. I don't care anything else about anything, and that's harmful when you think too black and white like that, because now you take someone like me. Now I happen to align like 90-something% with the Republican Party, especially nowadays. But like, but that's not always the case for a lot of people. And for example, there's gay conservatives.
Right.
People don't know that, but I actually know a few.
Milo.
Personally.
Yeah.
I don't know him personally,
crazy,
but yeah, Milo is a great example. Yeah. But I had a former coworker, flamboyantly gay. And he was like all for Trump and conservative. Don't take my money. Like, I'll work hard for it. And he would always get like weird looks. And And I was like, dude, props to you, man. Like he was bold about it too, you know, like he took that boldness that gay people can have when they're like loud about their, you know, sexual orientation. He took that same approach with his like everything else in politics. Like, you know, he was like in people's faces about it. And he almost had a more powerful way because the fact that he's gay, people kind of were like, didn't want to come at him too hard. You can throw that at him too. Yeah. You know? And they also didn't, you know, they wanted to be careful to not like, you know, so when they would argue with him, they were a little more like respectful. They would be like to me, you know, but he would just like guns blazing, just be like, yeah, no, like that's like socialism's like horrible. Like look what it does. Like he just boom, 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 and just like he know, and he knows it. Yeah. And he knows his stuff, and he would just like, you know, and so there's people like that, and I respected that because he's able to like use his brain and be like, you know what, yeah, like he's able to look at everything and be like, well, yeah, okay, just because I'm gay, does that mean I have to vote with the party that whatever is pro? Like, is that the only thing that defines me?
Yeah,
you know,
like the black people that didn't vote for Barack Obama. They're like, no, dude, I don't agree with what he's saying. But the whole world's like, how could you not?
Right. You know? Or when women don't vote for Hillary, it's like, it's a woman president. So you want the Wicked Witch from the West to be the president because she's a woman? You know, like it matters what woman we have. You know, like I actually just called out a girl I used to work on a campaign with. She posted. Well, it bugged me for a few reasons because it's not been declared yet. But, you know, like first female vice president, right? Woman. And put like this like big old little shrine with Kamala Harris. And she posted it on Instagram on her story. And I just replied like, I don't know. I said like, did you go to the dark side or something? I made like a little comment, you know, but I was like, oh no, not you too, you know? And I was like, then I was respectful too. I was like, don't you think it matters though? Oh, then she replied back, which I'm glad she did because I didn't want it just to be like, oh, I'm throwing a dig and that's it. Yeah. So she was like, oh, but isn't that great? Like we have a female, you know, and I'm like, I get that. Like that is cool. But don't you think it matters like who the person is, you know, like, than just the fact that she's a female, like you know,
their identity.
Yeah, because I was like, I would, that's cool. Like I'd be all for having a female VP, but you know, and then she was like, yeah, that's a good point, you know, like, you know, but she just got caught up in like the whole female VP, and I know like her political leaning isn't even left, you know. I worked with her for a Republican, you know, and I was like, and that was kind of my point is that some people just vote like, oh, I'm a woman, I'm going to vote for the party that's pro woman, or I'm gonna vote, you know. And then of course you can unravel that too. Like you go down to the bottom of it, they're not more pro women, you know. They're more pro left women. Not, you know what I mean? If you're a conservative woman, they'll eat you alive. Yeah. So if you would think like they do and they're a woman, then they're. But in a lot of things that are based off lies too, like, oh, there's a gender wage gap. No, there's not. There's a the women get paid less on the dollar. Look, like there's, and it's like, well, do you really think there's some guy in HR who's like, man, woman, same job, right? You're both VPs of the company. You're getting $100,000 because you're a man. And you're getting $50,000 because you're like, no, that's not how it. Like for one, that's super illegal, but two, that's not how that's happening. It's and this sounds bad. They get upset. Usually it's where I lose everybody, but they choose to make less money. Like, what do you mean? Why would anybody choose it? Well, yeah, they choose to either have a kid, get married, take time off work, not promote, you know, not do the 10-day overtime straight, and you know, and
the driving forces are different between men and women.
So absolutely,
doesn't make statistics look skewed. Then sorry.
No, absolutely. And then other things that people don't consider when they just hear those. It's all actually called like a false statistic. Is what fields are they getting into? So
and if any of our listeners are curious about that subject, Jordan Peterson kills it on that subject.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And not that I'm pointing anybody towards him theologically by any means, but just when it comes to like the discussion about gender wage gap and stuff like that.
Just data driven decisions.
Just kills that. Anybody with 2 cents listen to it and you'll be like, oh.
But the thing is, it's this lie that's believed by half the country because is that true that men get paid more on the average? Well, yeah, but you don't just stop there. Right. Why is that?
Right.
Another thing is, what jobs are they choosing? Women overwhelmingly choose social work jobs, which pay a lot less than other type of work. They choose to be teachers.
Yeah.
even more so, they choose to be kindergarten, preschool teachers, which pay the least.
Right.
You know,
Brazilians are killing it in UFC, not because people like Brazilians better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're killing it because a lot of reasons why people from that country do amazing in the UFC.
Yeah.
Right?
Why are there so many Brazilian jiu-jitsu champions?
Yeah.
It's like, well,
how come jiu-jitsu people like Brazilians better? You know?
Yeah. It's like, no, they don't. Yeah, exactly.
Right,
That's
so,
kind of a mindset, but that's just one issue. But like they run on these false narratives that is just believed and pushed, of course, by the media and everyone. Just anyone in the elite status knows that it's not true. They willingly fool people. But your average person, which is more sadistic. But the average person, they just believe it on its face value. Like, that's horrible. And many of the left, they're going down that road with good intentions. You know. Well, I don't want to be bigoted. I don't want to be against women making less money. I don't want to be. And then they're like, well, it's a no-brainer. I got to be a Democrat, you know? And then it's like, well, most of those things are not true that they're telling you. And then, you know, and then there's the whole, like what I was saying earlier, you shouldn't just be a one kind of vote person, you know? Right. But I think those are some of the things. And then when I mentioned way earlier about the religion, it being like a religion to them, as I think why it's so divided. Because a conservative, hey, Trump wins or loses, whatever happens in this next couple weeks of it being litigated, I'm going to work the next day. I'm going to be, still getting married. I'm going to be living my life. I'm still going to be going to church and trying to do what God's called me to do. And my life's going to go on. And I'm not going to go burn anything. And not just me, but 90-something% of the conservatives. We're not going to go loot and burn. And we might protest with like peacefully, like we're allowed to in the Constitution, but we're not going to do anything else like that, right? And then once it's over, like we're going to go home. The other side, not so much, right? Like it's like, oh my gosh, like they're going to burn, loot. It's like the end of the world to them if they lose an election. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where one side
emotionally invested.
Yeah, it's like you killed their Messiah kind of thing. Like
passionately invested.
Yeah, they're coming after you. You know, where a conservative is like, yeah, politics is great, but I got a job. Like I gotta feed my kids, and you know what I mean. Like
I can't wait to get married.
Yeah, you know, and just they have their lives and their God, most likely Jesus, but that's like their life, you know. And politics is just a means to make their life better, but it's not their all in all. You know?
Not their religion, their moral compass.
Right. And I think the left overwhelmingly they get that from the government. The government is their God. The politics is their religion, the government's their God, and whoever the face of that is their like leader, you know. And they look for them for moral guidance, they look for them for economic help, they look for and that's what they want, right? The elites want that, you to become completely dependent upon them. That's a whole nother thing with the whole shutdowns right now and all that. But
do you have any perceptions on like what might happen this next year with the do you have any ideas like, dang, like I really see this coming, or are you kind of just like, I don't know, dude, like we'll find out?
Well, I think that's hugely contingent on whether the fraud that's being found is enough to where it can overturn the election, and then if Trump stays in office or not. Either way, the word of God has to come true, right? And I think that we're seeing so much of that happening right now. And I'm not a prophet. I'm not saying it's the end times right now. I think we're getting darn close to it. I think that it'll happen in our lifetimes, but that's just my thoughts, you know. But I think that, if we keep going down this road with Biden being elected and really Kamala being the president, we're gonna be seeing some unprecedented things happening. I think our rights are going to get faded away. I mean, we have a pandemic, which I know people have died and stuff, but it has a 99% recovery rate. You know, young people overwhelmingly either don't know they have it, or they get it and they're fine within like the next day, you know, and they're going to all these extreme measures in the name of the virus. And it's been totally politicized to control people, get you socially, obedient to do whatever they say to do, you know, and you'll see it. Not only are people doing it, but they shame people who aren't, you know, and they're doing the bidding of the government for free, you know, like, like they'll call on you, they'll rat you out, and you'll see it, and it's already happening, but you'll see it more and more. Neighbors ratting each other out, family members turning each other in. I think we're going to go to a fascist type government, first thing they're going after is religious freedom. Churches, you see it now. I mean, so many churches are closed because of the pandemic.
Mandates and all that.
Right. And they're forgetting God and what he's commanded. They're forgetting what the Constitution both protect that completely. Like God says, don't, what's the scripture? Sorry.
Don't deny
the gathering of don't forsake the gathering of believers. And then, the Constitution has the right to freedom of assembly. It never has a clause in there. Oh, if COVID-19 happens, then you can't, or if there's a ban, there's no clause in there saying the government can take this away. It's an inalienable right given by God is
people
what it says.
Come together.
That people can come together. You could practice your religious freedoms. So they can only take away what we let them take away. And unfortunately, churches are falling in that. Local leaders and so on are falling victim to that. Just, just give it up, and once you give it up, you're not getting it back, So I think that's coming. You'll see our guns starting to get taken away. You'll see businesses getting shut down to where the only businesses left are going to be these big mega Walmarts, Amazon, the big ones who are all in lockstep with the government, big tech, controlling, watching everything you do. Not to be corny, but it's going to be like a Big Brother type of situation from George Orwell's 1984. Right. And that's going to be the reality. I mean, you see it now. I mean, with the spying and, the Alexa thing admitting that, we were spying on everybody, and there's just a lot going on. And I think it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And hopefully God pulls us out at some point before it gets too bad. But, as believers, we got to have faith. And I've been praying. My prayer right now is what you were saying during my campaign. And now that I lost, like, God, your will, you want me to win, I'm going to win. You don't want me to win, I'm going to lose. And it's not my time. And also for President Trump and the country, like, your will, like, you're still on the throne, whether who's in the Oval Office. You know what I mean?
But you don't make that as a passive statement. You just make that as
not at all.
Statement of faith. Because you're standing for what you believe.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'll go down fighting. But it's
I'm with you.
But it's exactly. I reject that way of thinking.
I caught that. So that's why I just said that.
But because I think we're still called to do a job and because we need to win over as many souls and we need to stand in the gap. And when the darkness gets darker, we need to get brighter, right? So I think that's going to happen too. That's the positive side of it, right? The way the world keeps getting darker, our lights are just going to keep shining brighter, or they should. So then it will. God's going to raise up people. So, hopefully we all want to be that, right? But I hope it gets pushed back, though. I have faith that if our people humble themselves and pray and that, not that Trump's our savior, but that Trump right now has been doing so much good for the country that if he could come in and have 4 more years and we can push back this what's going on, then I think we can slow that down. You can even see... You've seen it before. I mean, the 60s probably looked like the end of the world to people. Everyone loved orgies and people doing drugs everywhere and young people going crazy. But then in the 80s, boom, like it turned around a big Christian conservative flip, like culturally, like a social movement across the country, Sure. So it could happen again, but and that's Pastor Jack's call in Calvary Chapel, and I'm kind of answering the call. I'm trying to have faith with him as my pastor and as a leader and as a man of God to be like, okay, because I kind of want to tuck tail and run to Texas and be like, have the last slice of America before it's gone, But, if I'm called to be in California, because whatever happens is going to happen first in California and New York. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Whatever of those things I'm saying, like that's where it's going to happen first. Yeah.
Right. Yep. But how awesome it is for you to have gone through what you went through. So whether you run again or not, like you are equipped to preach the word of God to people, to tell your friends, your family members, to look at Jesus. Trump isn't the savior, but at the same time, we're going to go fighting, and like, to me, it just brings an important, as he's saying all this stuff, it could seem kind of like, dude, we're going to die, dude. Like, this is hopeless almost. But as you're saying that, like, I know that, like you're saying, God is on the throne.
God's on the throne, no matter. And that's what we always got to remember. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I am not, if you haven't picked this up, I'm not an anxious person. Like, I'm really not. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if you picked that up or not. But sometimes I should be nervous for things. And I'm not. Like, big exam tomorrow. I haven't studied at all. Why am I not nervous? Sorry. But, and I'm just like, and I kind of like, good and bad. I think it could be a bad thing too, but like I wing things sometimes. But or even like I don't get like even when I was proposing, I didn't get nervous until like moments before, like not even the day of, like slight nerves, but not like everyone's like, bro, are you like, how are you feeling? I'm like, no, I'm fine, and I don't know what that is. And I think it's, I think it's a blessing because I'm able to walk calmly in things, but I usually don't get it until the moment of. But when this election was going down and, because take away coronavirus, I think Trump would have won huge. Just being honest, huge. They had nothing on him. Economy was great. Everything was going great for the country, other than people calling him a racist, which they've been trying for 4 years. Impeachment failed. They weren't even campaigning on that, by the way, because they realized that was a mistake. I was like, he was going to win big, but they blamed him for coronavirus. Like that was everything that's all they were hitting him with. So fraud or not, I think he still would have won like big. And then when he wasn't, and I'm seeing everything going on, and then seeing them like acting like Biden's won yet, and it hasn't even been official yet. And I'm like, I was really, for a few days there, just at work, a couple guys like, dude, you all right? Like I was zoning out. I kind of just, I was even like kind of like shaking at a couple of points. And I prayed a few times, and then I just had this like worship session at home. And God kind of just took it from me. I was like, I haven't worshiped like that in a while. And he really touched, the Holy Spirit like completely touched me. I just felt like this, like, you know what? Yeah, God, like you're on the throne, no matter whatever pawn is in the office, whether they're evil or they're good. Like in the Bible, he's raised up good kings, bad kings, and he ordains the time and places man shall live, and we're in this one. And whatever happens, but his word is going to come true. We have to stay true to him. He'll stay true to us. And if it gets dark, then you know what, Lord, then let him chop my head off. Like that's the worst that could happen, right? And then I'm with you, So I'm almost gonna start trying to live a little fearless in a way, I'm gonna try in a, not reckless, but fearless. I'm gonna be just, whatever. Like, I'm thinking about maybe joining law enforcement or something, and there's that fear of like, what if I get shot or this, it's like, well, if I die, that's my gain, I know I'm going to have a family and stuff too, but I mean, God's got me no matter, I can't live in fear with anything, whether it's my physical life or, how, you know what I mean? Like my day to day, like it's going to be, we have a God who's transcendent, above all this. And, they're going to have their judgment and, you know what I mean? I'd rather be us than them,
Yeah. One of the things, and I'm not going to go too lengthy on it, but one of the things that God's always shown me is, sometimes we look at somebody doing something effective and we think, dang, that is effective. I need to get on board with that. But all that you're looking at is a person responding to what God made them to do. So what people really need to do is, instead of asking like where they can look and see what the best thing for us all to do is to line themselves up where they know the voice of God in their own life. And they could be the most impactful person that God intended for them to be.
Amen. Yeah.
And if Christians would do that, we would all find where we're supposed to be, and we could do amazing things in this world, And that's what's encouraging about your story, bro, is to see like God putting in you like something that's different. Like, oh, like to me, I see like a flower, a color I'd never seen. That's what I see. Like, I'm like, oh, like what's God doing over there? Like that's kind of dope. And I've always felt like that. Like when the first time I heard Jack Hibbs teaching, and I'm like, look at that. Like, look what God made that man to do. What a trip.
Yeah.
And that's the way I feel about everybody's calling. Like the most impressive things I've ever seen in a man that God's working through is just a man who's more surrendered to what God's doing in his life. He's more surrendered.
Right.
That's all I'm looking for. That's all I'm left on this earth for to do now, is to with every opportunity God gives me to point men to be more what God made them to be. I'm not trying to mold anybody into anything, because I can't stand to see, a bird, trying to do the work of a bear or a bear trying to do the work of a bird, you know?
And I'm more scared of that in some ways, and it's weird. It's like a fear of success, like I'm more scared to like just totally submit to God and give it all to Him, because like what will happen. And I know it won't be bad because I believe that, you know, but I'm like, what would it look like, and all the uncertainty of it, and just like almost like it's too good to be true, or God can just take me wherever, right? And that I'm more scared of that than like, you know, anything bad that'll happen. But I know I need to get over that and be like, just lay it all down, you know.
There's one, see, because there's a lot of uncertainties, but that's not an uncertainty. That's a confession of how scary it is,
right?
But it's not an uncertainty.
Yeah.
What is a certainty? That you do need to lay that down.
Yeah.
And be like, God's plan or nothing. Like,
right.
You know, like,
But
it is scary.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
right.
it is. Yeah.
I feel it. I'm not exempt from it. I'm like, you know, but you know,
it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. Yeah, that should be
what we need to do.
That's the only certain thing. Actually,
it's the only certain thing. Yeah.
Awesome. There's a quote. Yeah, we're gonna wrap this up. There's a quote from D.L. Moody that said, "The world has yet to see what God can do with a man who is fully submitted unto Him." And Tommy, you might be that man. So the call is hard, and the call is a crazy road ahead of you. So we definitely want to pray for you. Do you have anything in mind? Actually, we're going to pray for you right now, that you would specifically, you know, we're going to pray about some of the things we talked about, but that you would really hope we like keep praying for you on for.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, number one, obviously I'm getting married in April, just a few months away. Pray I stop eating so much. I want to lose a lot of weight. So that's a joke, but not really. Like I want to lose a lot of weight for the wedding. And obviously everything that goes into that, right? And I know you know, because you're going through it as well. But I think next would just be direction. And where do we live? Do I stay in Diamond Bar? You know, do I run again in Diamond Bar? And where? Not that I have to have it all figured out, because God doesn't want us to know everything, right? But just direction. I don't want to make... He'll bless me wherever I go, right? But I want to make sure I'm doing His perfect will. So I don't want to take off to, you know, Africa for 2 years and realize like God's like, that's not what I had for you. You had to learn some hard lessons because you made your, you know what I mean? Like, so for me to go where He wants me to go, that's stay in Diamond Bar, or if it's to move out of state, or if it's to move just to Walnut, you know, right next, wherever, right? Like just because that's going to affect where I run for office, where, how soon and all of that. Right. And so it really will affect a lot, and finances and just practically all that goes into where we're going to be. So really just direction on, you know, going into a marriage, and then where we're going to live, and how that's going to affect our lives and my political career direction. Yeah.
You got it. And percentages, you know, how much of Christ is in you, because I mean, I know I'm not trying to beat a point home, but you know, in my life, I could look back and see that I was doing the right thing sometimes, but I didn't have as much of Christ in me that I needed to. And then I could see other times that I was like, I didn't even know, but I was so surrendered to the Lord that all this crazy stuff was just happening. You know?
Yeah.
And so, how, you know, let it be that Tommy has so much of the Lord in him that wherever he places his foot, that's God's plan, you know.
Yeah. No, I need to get there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's pray, Tommy.
Okay.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity to get to know Tommy Orona. I pray, Father, that you would continue to anoint him, Father, continue to have your Holy Spirit just poured into him, Lord God. As you've led this conversation, Father, you brought to light the importance of Christ in Tommy. I pray, Father, that that truth would just ring in his head, in his mind, his heart, after he leaves here, Lord, and that he would remember how effective he can be, Father, when you are living through him, Father. I pray, Father, that he would know when he's in your will, Father, that you would give him discernment when he's stepping away from it. I pray, Father, that when the enemy tries to attack him, Lord God, in where he's at in life, Father, I pray, Father, that you would remind him that your grace is covering him. I pray, Father, for his marriage coming up. I pray, Father, just that you would fill it with joy, Lord. When the stressful times come, Father, I pray, Father, that you would bring peace in his mind and his heart. I pray, Father, that you would just use Tommy and his fiance, Father, as a power couple in their community, in their church, Father, that they would be able to pour into other people, Lord God. I pray, Father, for, Lord God, just preparation, even physically, Lord God. Prepare Tommy, Father. I pray for direction in his life, that you would continue to give him, Father, just those daily steps, Father. May he look at where you've placed him today, Father, and not become anxious about it, Father. We thank you, Lord God, that you've given him a spirit of peace. I pray that would continue, Lord God, and continue just to direct his finances. I pray, Father, just that if the enemy tries to come and attack, Lord God, that you would send your angels before him, Father.
Yes.
And Lord God, we just thank you again for his being here as a friend, Lord. I pray that you continue to use him mightily, whether he's going to go run for the president one day, Lord God. I pray, Father, you would just give him the power of Christ. So we love you, Father. We praise you. We thank you. And in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 Cool.
That's
All right, that's a wrap.
Sweet.